Jay Crawford, Adam the Bull, Garrett Bush, and so many big names, it would take me hours to say all of their names. The ultimate Cleveland sports show. Booyah!
It's Friday! Woohoo! Where's Bull? I thought Bull was going to be here today.
Bull has told us that he was going to miss Monday, Thursdays, Tuesday, Wednesdays. The next couple of weeks it's going to be Monday, Friday. So
I won't see Bull till
you're not
going to
see Bull till football season. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Bull.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine that first day back of school? Like that's the first day after the summer.
Actually,
Good to see you.
in 2 weeks,
exactly.
In 2 weeks, Bull will be here on a Monday.
Okay, so I'll see him then.
So you'll see him then, and then
All right,
he's
very
not
good.
supposed to work a Monday for the next 6 weeks.
All right,
So,
very good. All right,
No problem.
lot to get to today.
Yes.
A gut punch last night in the Guardians game.
goodness.
Absolute gut punch. These games are worth 2.
Yeah.
So instead of being 2.5 out, they're 4.5 out. It was the bullpen, who I'm going to make an argument here in a little bit, that's just overworked.
I
think they have the top 3 appearance guys in baseball are in the Guardians bullpen.
And I have a big issue with the way Tito's managed that group over the last week and a half.
Well, you're not
Big
alone.
issue.
You're not alone. And that was the strength last year. We always talked about how that's the most difficult area to duplicate success is the bullpen. And we're seeing that to be true. Now, they're also struggling in scoring runs, although they've scored 28 in their last 4. So that's starting to come around. We'll get into the Guardians, but boy, that loss last night, man.
It sucked.
When they went up 6-3, I thought,
sucked.
wow, they're going to be 2.5 out, despite the sky falling.
My dad was at my house, and he's my mom and me were putting stuff away, and he's upstairs. Yeah, man. Guardians 6 runs, man. The bats is going.
Yep.
Hey, bats is going, Garrett. I'm like, oh, okay, let me see what you talk about. Next thing you know, man, it's a tie ball game. Next thing you know, man, the Guardians done lost.
I know. It was horrible.
It's tough.
It really was.
Tough.
Big win for the Twins, tough one for the Guardians. Also, we're going to talk about Game 1 of the NBA Finals, Yawn Fest. I mean, absolute snoozer. It pretty much played out how I thought it would. It was never really a game. I think Miami got it to single digits briefly in the fourth quarter.
Nope. 10.
They got to within 9.
10.
Look, they got to within 9.
No,
Because I
they
always
never
track
cut.
those things.
I didn't think they cut it. It was they were up 22, and there was an 11-0 run.
They got it to
And then-
9 early in the fourth. I could be wrong. Check the game log.
Irrelevant because
Yeah,
they were
irrelevant
down. They were down
because
20 going
as
to the
soon as-
fourth, and
yeah,
it was
smoked.
as soon as they made it even remotely a game. Denver said,
Yeah,
go
we're
home,
out.
Go home."
And I think that's going to be the way of the series.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to kick dirt on Miami too soon because we thought they were all dead when they blew a 3-0 lead and it was 3-3, and they came back and won Game 7 on the road. But we'll get to that. Also, this is a fascinating conversation. I'm glad you guys put this on the list today. 2 things on Myles Garrett. One, is he a Hall of Famer? If he walked from the game right now, is he a Hall of Famer? And it's a discussion, and we would love to hear your thoughts on that. If Myles Garrett left right now, let us know. Is he going to the Hall of Fame? His numbers are tremendous, but does he have to do it longer? And also, I love this question. Is this year setting up to be the biggest of his professional career? I think with the help that he's got now and Jim Schwartz in, I think that's a very fair and legitimate question. We'll dive into that. Before we get into the meat of our show today, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but I think I particularly because of my relationship with Jim Donovan and what he's meant to me in my career, I just wanted to take a little bit of time to talk briefly about his situation. I'm sure by now most of Cleveland sports fans have heard that Jimmy is, I don't want to say he's battling his cancer again because I'll be perfectly honest. I think Jimmy has been battling this since his original diagnosis decades ago. He has done it in a very stealth-like way. He does not like attention. He doesn't talk about himself. He feels uncomfortable talking about himself. And I think Jimmy, for the most part, has been ongoing with his treatments. But recently, he's learned that he's back in the throes of the fight of leukemia. He's been getting regular chemotherapy treatments. And he woke up 2 days ago and realized that his hair was falling out because of the chemotherapy. And rather than, as valiant as it's been for him to try to hide it and just to try to manage this himself, he realized he wasn't going to be able to do that. He wanted to get ahead of it. He shaved his head. He came in. The staff was informed. he told all the viewers and Cleveland on the 7 o'clock show a couple of nights ago of his situation. Jimmy is, and I'm not saying this now because he's sick again, I have said this throughout the time I've known Jim Donovan, both as a person and as a sportscaster. Jimmy is quite simply the best local sportscaster I have ever seen. I've worked in some major markets. I worked 17 years at ESPN. What Jimmy does is mind-boggling. And the way he does it, you'll know this because you've been a sports anchor before, McNuggets. Typically, sportscasters write out everything they're going to say.
He doesn't write anything, right?
He's never used a script. He will sit down in his chair, and he will know what his elements are. I've got 3.5 minutes to navigate Guardians highlights, a scoreboard, a soundbite, maybe a Cavs highlight, a scoreboard, a highlight, and then a few other items. And the reason it's written is because you've got a strict 3 minutes, 3:30, whatever it is. You have to hit that time, particularly because Jimmy's the last element in the show. After the sportscast, goodbye, evening news is next. Mm-hmm. So producers and directors love that all that is perfectly scripted out to the word because you can time how long the show's going to be. Jimmy's never done that.
You told me that the first time I met you when we spoke about Jim Donovan, and I was like, there's no way.
Have you seen it in the studio? Have you ever been up there to watch him in the studio while he does it?
Yeah, I've been in the control room too, and they have gotten, I guess, have learned over the years.
They know his cadence.
To follow him, but the first time I was in there, I was like, if I was a director, if I was Director Steve, I'd be like, no way. Like, no way.
So I've done that at a few stations that I worked at. I had a director in Columbus and Tampa that were tremendous. And they understood that I'd like to ad-lib and I like to freelance. But to be perfectly honest with you, my going that route was because I found out Jim did it. Mm-hmm. When I was, and I've talked about this on the show, I've told Jimmy this, I still have the VHS tapes. When I was a freshman at Bowling Green, and all through my time at Bowling Green, when Jim Donovan was here, just starting as the sports director at Channel 3, my parents would set up the VCR so it would record for 15 minutes from 6:15 to 6:30 and 11:15 to 11:30 every Monday through Friday. When the tape got full, they would drop it in the mail and send it to me, and I would watch back all of Jim Donovan's sportscasts because even as a young 18-year-old who knew he wanted to do this for a living, I knew there was something special about this guy. I didn't know what. I just loved his passion, his energy, his spontaneity. It wasn't until later I learned that none of that was scripted. It's the most remarkable thing I've ever seen in this business. Now, we freelance this show, obviously. You're not going to write a 2-hour show. Everything we do here is unscripted. But I can honestly say, of all of the things that I've been able to accomplish in my career, it's even though Jimmy didn't know me until much later, my first day on Cold Pizza, Jim Donovan was a guest.
Oh, really?
Because my first day when we launched Cold Pizza, October 20, 2003, LeBron James was making his NBA debut, the same time I was debuting at ESPN. And we needed a Cleveland guest to talk about LeBron's first game in Sacramento. And they came to me, knowing I'm the Cleveland guy, and they go, who you got? And I said, this is easy, Jim Donovan. And he didn't even know that, well, I take that back. We watched the 97 Rose Bowl, Ohio State and Arizona State, on the sidelines together. I followed him around like a puppy dog. It was the first time I'd ever met him. I introduced myself to him and I said, I hope you don't mind, but I'm like, a young Major League Baseball player getting to pick the brain of Mickey Mantle. That's the way I viewed it. So, and he was gracious. He answered all my questions. And years later, after I started at ESPN, I had him on as a guest. And I knew he was doing the 11 o'clock sportscast the night before. And we were on the air at 7 a.m., which means he had to be back here at the studio to do a satellite hit for the show which was anchored in New York. And he said, yeah, no problem, I'll do it. He graciously came in, he did it. That's when our relationship really began, although we met at the Rose Bowl. And Jimmy didn't know it, but once I found out that he ad-libbed everything, I thought, he's the best I've ever seen. For me to be that good, I've got to learn how to do that. And I taught myself, just as he did, to do sportscasts without writing scripts. And it was absolutely, he was the impetus for that. I think as I did that and mastered that, it was crazy how my career took off. because I learned I'm not reading now like everybody else. Now I'm telling stories. I'm a storyteller.
And when you do that, it feels like you're talking to the audience. And as an audience member watching, it feels like Jim Donovan's talking to me or
That's
to
exactly
you or to
it.
anybody. And when you go unscripted as opposed to reading, even the best people and the main sports center anchors, they read scripts and
they read them word for word.
There's a teleprompter. You read every script word for word. They ad-lib a little bit, but for
Chris
the most
Fowler
part,
is another one that just
completely ad-lib.
wings everything.
But what would you say, 98 out of 100, 99 out of 100?
99 out of 100 read every word they're talking.
And they write every
saying.
word, or a
Everything.
producer writes it.
Yep.
And when you
That's
do go
crazy.
ad-lib, and that's what, I've been here for a year in Cleveland, a little over a year, and I watched Jim pretty frequently. I've only met him twice in passing.
Yeah.
Couldn't have been nicer in our little mini interactions, but the ability to do that brings the viewer into the studio and brings Jim
That's a good way of
Donovan
saying it,
into the
Mike.
living room, and they have that interpersonal connection. And even though he's speaking to a million people through the TV,
Right.
it feels like a one-on-one connection, and that's what makes, in my opinion, him special. And when we first talked, you said he's the best to ever do it.
I've told you that.
What you just repeated, you told me the very first time we
I've
met.
maintained that honestly since the late 80s.
And now knowing him and watching him for a year, I don't disagree at all.
Yeah.
I think the most impressive part about it is sometimes, like you talk about state-run media all the time. Like when you are the voice of a football team, you're the voice on air, and people know you, and you do the news locally. You are pretty much I would say, the representation most times of the organization.
Right.
The executives aren't going to meet, and you are the person that is the voice of the Browns. So I found it always very refreshing that when he does his hits after the games and when the Browns are bad, he says it. And he says it with a level of candor that a lot of people can't do or get off, right? Like
He's authentic, that's why.
He gives that energy after the game, and I've heard him say, like, the Browns, this was a disappointing season, and they just didn't have it. This thing looks ugly. And I can respect somebody that's the voice and the face of an organization being able to keep it real to a point where they're saying, listen, this is what it is. I represent the team, but I want the team to be better. And I've always respected him for that.
So that's another skill set that very few play-by-play men, because he's really 2 in 1. He's the best local studio sports anchor I've ever seen. He also happens to be the best radio play-by-play guy I've ever listened to. I've listened to all of them.
In the NFL or just in sports in general?
In the NFL. Now, here's the thing about what you just touched on. There is the unwritten rule when you're state-sponsored media that you're not going to be too critical of the team. You're an employee of the team. You're one of us. There are guys, Michael Kay in New York with the Yankees is a guy that if they suck, he's going to say they suck. And if they want to fire him for it, he's
fall on the sword and he'll go, yeah.
But there's very few local guys, radio guys, that feel, now Michael Kay is a TV play-by-play guy, but there's very few local guys paid by the teams that have the skill set to throw darts at the team when they deserve it, but do it in a way where the team officials can't even be mad because he's telling the truth.
Right.
Jim never lets his emotions get the best of him. We have our Monday chats every Monday, and I'll say, oh my God, this, that, and the other. Jim always puts it into perspective. This was a bad matchup from jump.
Yeah.
We're gonna beat teams that are better than the team we just lost to, but this was a bad matchup, and he tells you why. So when Jim does his on-field recap immediately after every game that goes on to Channel 3's digital site and does tens of thousands of hits every Monday.
I watch it every Monday.
Everybody does. It's mandatory appointment watching on Monday. Jim tells it the way it is. That's why he's as popular as he is. He's always fair. He always gives it to the fan straight. If the team was bad, Jimmy doesn't sugarcoat it. He doesn't hide it. He says they were bad. If they're good, he doesn't overhype it and say they're going to win the Super Bowl now. He just says the way he sees it in that moment. So he's accomplished so much in his career. Early in his career, when he first started here, this station was actually owned by NBC. It was an owned and operated affiliate. Jim used to do national NFL games for NBC. So he would have an assignment every Sunday. Oftentimes it was the Browns because he knew the team so well. But imagine that tricky spot. The national voice of a game between the Browns and it oftentimes wasn't the Browns and the Bengals because those games were going to their number one crew, which was usually, I think, Cricky and
Dick Enberg,
Trumpy.
Yeah.
Those guys used to do the big games, but Jim would sometimes he'd get like a Cleveland, San Francisco game or whatever. And he always managed it just fine. No one in San Francisco would know that this guy was the local guy for Cleveland because he was fair. And he also did Olympic assignments for NBC. So he's done so much in his career. It's incredible. And I don't even like talking about it like he's done because he's not. I know Jim's not.
It hasn't stopped him before.
It hasn't stopped him before. It will not stop him this time. He will work through this as much as he possibly can. The hope is he'll go through this round of treatments and he'll be back as strong as ever. Jimmy has been here at WKYC for 38 years.
Absurd.
I mean, I don't know this. I feel a little odd saying this, but I don't think there's a broadcaster, forget sportscaster. I don't know that there is a broadcaster in the business today that can say that they've been at the same station for the last 38 years. He's been loyal to this city and to this station. He's been a lot to our area. Jimmy, we love you. We're behind you. And I know that in a very short period of time, we're going to see Jimmy doing it just as energetically and as passionately as he always has. He's definitely going to beat this thing and move on forward from it. So, again, Jimmy, get well. I know he's going to work some through this, and we'll be seeing him. But I know he's going to have this beat in no time, and he's got a whole lot of people behind him. It's been great for me to watch just through social how much support he's getting from the viewers. I think he's the most popular broadcaster that this city currently has, and I think you'd be really hard-pressed to say he's not the most popular broadcaster this city has ever known. And that's saying something because we have a lot of successful and very popular broadcasters that have been through here, but I think Jimmy, for me, is at the very top of that list. So I wanted to take a little time to do that. Let's transition and go to the Browns. I mentioned that there's two questions here. Is he a Hall of Famer if he retires right now? And is this year setting up to be the best of his pro career? McNuggets, you can start. What do you think about the Hall of Fame question?
You want to start with the Hall of Fame question?
Yeah, we might as well.
All right. Just so y'all know, I have numbers galore for y'all today. If you don't like numbers, you're going to hate me today. I'm just going to apologize ahead of time. Taking biases aside.
Right.
Speaking to you, the viewers, if Myles Garrett retired today and never played another down of football in his life, he's not a Hall of Famer. Are we kidding ourselves?
Yeah, no.
It's not even frankly close. His career ranks, as of today, 88th all-time in sacks.
I wouldn't have guessed he was that low.
Tied for 191st all-time in forced fumbles and tied for 105th in tackles for loss.
Yeah.
He's a Browns great as of today, but he is nowhere near a Hall of Famer if he retired. However, he is 1,000,000% on a Hall of Fame trajectory. Through 6 seasons, he has 74.5 career sacks. Only 6 players ever have had more sacks through 6 seasons.
And do you have the list of those players?
Do I have the list? Of course I have the list of players. Are you kidding me?
It's a who's who of pass rushers.
Are you guys ready? Reggie White,
one
95.
of the greats of all time.
DeMarcus Ware with 80. TJ Watt was 77.5. Derek Thomas was 77. Bruce Smith was 76. And JJ Watt was 76.
Those guys are all Hall of Famers or will be.
The only players who have ever had more sacks than Myles Garrett through 6 seasons. And you may be asking, well, where are the other all-time greats rank through 6 seasons? Anthony, let's pull up the graphic with the other all-time greats through 6 seasons, and you will see that Myles Garrett is well ahead of most Hall of Fame defensive ends through 6 seasons. How about Julius Peppers, 56, Michael Strahan, 47, Jason Taylor, 58. The list goes on and on and on. As of today, Myles Garrett not a Hall of Famer, but he is 1,000,000,000 trillion gajillion% on pace to be a Hall of Famer if he continues at this same rate, or if not even better, which I expect him to be this year for the next couple seasons.
I don't know what a gajillion is, but I co-sign everything you just said.
Thank you.
So are we going to get any dissension here at all? G. Bush, if we're going to, it's going to come from you.
No, he's not a Hall of Fame. See, I try to look at it differently. If he's going to do the numbers, I'm going to look at it through the eye test, right? Now, Myles Garrett is dominant when it comes to pass rushing, right? For the Browns, it's so difficult to watch it because he could be way better if he actually had a coach that was willing to put him in positions to get easier sacks.
Hopefully we have that now.
Hopefully we got that. 2, another defensive end or defensive tackles that kind of garner any sort of attention from offensive coordinators, right? He has not played with somebody that you had to double or is going to be a wrecking ball opposite of him.
When he got Clowney was at the tail end of his career.
Yes. And I think Clowney is washed. I think Clowney's out of here.
He hasn't been signed. So not just you, I think the rest of the league is looking at Clowney as a wash.
He hurt himself with his comments
Agreed.
at the end of the season, towards the end of the season.
And his actions. Like, what do you mean you're only going to go on third down? That seems crazy. But I'll say when you look at Myles Garrett, he does not have a Defensive Player of the Year award. That would bolster a lot, right? Mm-hmm. That would help him tremendously because when you're a Defensive Player of the Year, it kind of puts you on a different level, right? And he does not have that so far. And he does. I look at the TFLs, right? The TFLs for me is something that you can get put in a place where not only are you a great pass rusher, but are you getting in the backfield? Are you playing the run? And what are your tackles for loss look like? I think that's one of the missing parts of Myles Garrett's game. Like, you can always say he's going to show up, he's going to give you anywhere from 12 to 16 sacks. That's what I would like to see, that number in the 20s. But one of the areas that I would love to see is you be able to dominate in two different facets. J.J. Watt was able to do that by getting deflections and tip passes.
Right.
I think one year he had 25 deflections, which is devastating. On third down, you get the ball knocked down in July.
It's almost as good as a sack.
It is.
Because it leads to a punt.
It's infuriating. Because at least if you let him throw the ball, I got a chance for my receiver to catch the ball and do some things. But he was dominant in that area. He was dominant as a pass rusher. And he was just disruptive. I would just like to see more disruptiveness. But as McNugget said, with all those things being said, he is on a fast trajectory. The only player on that list, Reggie White at 90 sacks, which was crazy.
Absurd.
Yeah. I think he had 95.
He had 95. And also,
crazy.
some guys I missed on the Lawrence Taylor. Guess how many sacks he had through 6 seasons? Lawrence Taylor, arguably the best pass rusher of all
40s?
time. No, he had 73.5. One fewer than Myles Garrett. But still, fewer than Myles Garrett. Aaron Donald, 72. Cameron Wake, 63. Von Miller, 73.5. You look at all the historical pass rushers, like I said, only 6 players in the history of the NFL had more sacks than 6 seasons.
I would say that not only is he on a
Garrett.
trajectory for the Hall of Fame, because I think he clearly is, I think he's on a trajectory to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, and I also think he's on a trajectory to be, when he's all said and done, listed in the names of the greats that we just put out there. I think when it's all said and done, he has a chance to be top 5. I think he's certainly going to be top 10. Here's my knock on Myles Garrett. And I almost feel like I'm looking at the beautifully restored car, and I'm pointing out the nick in the paint on the underbody and the slight blemish on the seat. Because other than that, it's so picture-perfect beautiful. But there are blemishes, and the blemishes are the one-dimensional. He tends to be one-dimensional. He does need to do something else at an elite level, whether that's knocking down passes. I think his strip sacks and his fumbles, I think he's getting elite in that area.
He's been getting better as his career's progressed.
Here's my biggest knock on him. There are still too many times when I have to check, is he in the game? Mm-hmm. Is he playing right now? I haven't seen anything from 95. And when I watch, particularly the 2 guys in the game right now that really jump off at me, when TJ Watt is on the field, you know it. Every member of the other team knows it, and every fan watching the game knows he's on the field. He doesn't tend to have these lapses, these stretches of a quarter and a half or 2 quarters where he's at least making his presence felt. And sometimes when you look at the stat sheet after a game, you're like, wow, Myles didn't play. No tackles, no sacks, no TF, nothing. You know, I just need a Hall of Fame player to constantly be a presence on the field.
There was the Week 3 game against Pittsburgh last year where Myles Garrett had, I believe, 2 tackles, no sacks, no tackles for loss, but like a 94 PFF grade.
Yeah, I remember that. We talked about it on the show.
We talked about it on the show, and they won. It was the Thursday night football game. They won the game, so we were ecstatic. And I tweeted at one point, I was like, hey, where's Myles Garrett? And then it kind of blew up. People were like, well, he's getting double, triple teamed. And
he always does, but the greats always do.
And that is fair. And PFF, like, I don't know I know what they tell us, how they grade these players. I'm not sitting in a room watching them, knowing what Myles Garrett's defensive assignment was, and I'm not exactly sure where he was supposed to be. G could talk a lot better than I can on the defensive line assignments, especially as a defensive end, and when you're getting double teamed, what you're really supposed to do. But he always grades out well on PFF, and those guys, as much as I think I'm a genius, Like, those guys know football, and their grades aren't the end-all, be-all of everything. But when he gets a 94 grade, even though his name hasn't been called and he only has 2 tackles, I feel like he has to be doing something more than meets the casual eye. And not saying you have a casual eye.
He is. No, I do have a casual eye. I mean, all of us do.
But he has to be doing something more than what we see from a viewer's perspective watching on TV.
I want to get G's comments on the PFF rush grade, the rush defense grade. If you could throw that back up again.
He had a 93.5 pass grade. It was the highest in football last year.
But the run grade
and his run grade was in the 64s, which is pretty average for the record, pretty average in context.
Sure, when you're geared to get after the quarterback, guys are going to run by you. But should that G. Bush be higher than where it is?
Well, to speak a little bit to the PFF grades, right? When you look at the 92.5 overall, usually they have a plus-minus system when you're getting graded by coaches or you're getting graded by anybody who's watching you play. So they're going to give you a point if did you do your assignment, right? So if you're supposed to be in C-gap, were you in C-gap? Did you get moved off the ball? Did you get blocked and did you let somebody get to the next level? If you stay in your gap, you don't get blown off the ball, they give you a plus for that. Okay, did you get penetrations? Even if you got blocked by 2 or 3 people, did you get penetration? Did you at least make the ball bounce somewhere else, even if you don't make the tackle? And then the big thing is if you have to allocate 2 resources to block Myles Garrett, you also get a plus because that's one less player that you have to block.
So
other
even before
guys.
the ball's snapped, he's kind of in plus territory because he's double teamed or chipped.
There it is.
Is it like a point guard who could have 10 assists if everyone makes their shots, but may leave a game with 3 assists because guys went 3 of 10? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes, because here, as a pass rusher, Myles Garrett literally has about, I would say, between 5 and 10 opportunities to get sacks a game, right? And those are when a quarterback holds the ball more than a very quick amount of time, 2.5 seconds. PFF also has that. If you get pressure within 2.5 seconds and the quarterback throws the ball and nothing happens, you get an extra credit point for that too because you're making him throw the ball quickly. So you can do all of these things, right? You can be in your gap, you can put your hands up, you can have all these pluses, but when you look at the stat sheet, it doesn't say anything because
it's not showing up.
It's not showing up. Yeah. It's difficult for you to flash. And so when he does flash, and he does get sacks after being double teamed, now his grade is off the charts because now you got a sack and you got double teamed. So that's why sometimes things like that happen when you look at the overall grades. But to your point, the run grade is at 68% because you're not affecting that play. You're not like there should be never a time where Myles Garrett lets somebody get outside of him, right?
For context, what's T.J. Watt's PFF run grade? Just for context.
Earl would have to look that up. Right?
Okay, Earl, if you get that, let us know. I'm not sure what it was. Micah Parsons, he's another guy that I look at that I never have to. He's never invisible to me.
Yeah.
When Micah's on the field, when TJ's on the field, I think Aaron Donald has set the new bar.
Yeah, when you watch Aaron Donald as a defensive lineman, he's undersized inside, but the way Aaron Donald plays the run and the pass, he did it in a way that was unique because he's really not trying to engage with you. Like, he's just like, oh, I'm quick enough, I can run around you, and I can run underneath you.
You can get off blocks.
And I can get off blocks, I can shed. So you don't know what Aaron Donald's going to do.
Right.
And they give him a two-way go a lot of times to maximize that. And now he can go left or right. So now you're guessing. Sometimes, and we have to take in consideration, defensive coordinators, I used to be defensive coordinators' nightmares because I wasn't going to just be in my gap all the time like that. Like, because
you were the OBJ of defensive linemen.
Yeah, they'd be like, listen, if you make that tackle, you better make that tackle because you were supposed to be in their gap. I'm like, well, he was running in B. I got it. I could spill off late and you make that. They're like, no, that's not what we do. What we doing?
Yeah.
Anthony, you got the grades?
Yeah. For context, TJ is 77.1, and then Parsons is 73.2.
Okay, so those are TJ significantly better.
Mm-hmm.
Micah, who is more of a pass rusher, I guess, but he's still 73, 5 points higher than Myles Garrett.
I wonder real quick. Because the Browns' rush defense was so bad last year.
I wonder that too.
If everyone got dinged, not dinged, but because the entire unit was horrendous, everyone's grades are just lower than they typically would be.
Probably.
Yeah.
I would assume so.
Yeah. And a lot. Like
Togiai and Jordan Elliott and Taven Bryan all had 30s last year in the middle. So.
And sometimes we used to call it hiding people. When you got a team and you're not good, you got to hide people. Like, I know that's the best defensive tackle you got, but you have to do things schematically. Like sometimes coaches have their best performances with whack defenses because it forces them to be creative.
You mean like gimmicked up?
Yeah, gimmicked up. Like, they're like, hey, when we played for OU, we used to have this defense called loop check, right? And we would line up, and basically what we would do is we would turn and run diagonal down the sideline, like down the line of scrimmage.
At the snap of the ball?
At the snap of the ball, everybody. So my job was to be a head up on the tackle, and I had to get to A-gap. Even if they were blocking me, I had to turn and run diagonally, right?
Wow.
Then the nose, he had to run and everybody ran this way. And what happened was they created this thing called the rope-a-dope technique. And our linebacker, his name was Dennis Chukwuemeka. He was a really good linebacker in the MAC. And what they do, they say, you're doing the rope-a-dope technique. What you're going to do is everybody's going to run that way. The ball should never stay front side because everybody on our team is running that way. So the ball has to cut back. And he would stand here, take 2 steps, and then scrape right off the backside.
He's kind of on an island now.
And he's so that guy has to make the tackle.
He's got to make it.
So
he was probably a very good open field tackler.
He was a very good open field tackler. And what they did, they said, we don't have the athletes to play these guys straight up.
Yeah.
And we basically were one of the best teams in the country at stopping the run. It wasn't because we were great. It was because we would do things like, all right, we got one guy. We're going to make sure that you can't block anybody. You're not going to run in front side. So the ball is going to spill.
So you're really forcing them to kick it back the other way.
Yes.
And then when they do, there's the gobble up is gonna clean them up every time.
And it's one-on-one, and if he breaks a tackle, he's probably going 45 yards for a touchdown. And if he gets tackled, it looks genius.
And then the adjustment was, we had one of our best players was named Rob Stover. He was a safety at Ohio State, right? So we got him as a transfer. We spot shadow him. So what they would do is say, Chuk, you're gonna be right here. Yeah. If the ball does not declare, it has to come back. You're standing there, and they would send the strong safety, Rob Stover, screaming off the edge as if he was blitzing. Wow. And so now if Chuk doesn't hit him, you got another leverage player that's already there as well that could clean up the tackle, and people just didn't understand what we were running. They were like, I've never seen this technique. Why are these linemen just getting up running across the field?
It's a pitcher who has a 91-mile-an-hour fastball who has to live off junk.
Yep, that's it.
It essentially lives off
Interesting.
junk.
Okay, let's do an ad read quick, and then we'll ask if this is setting up to be Myles Garrett's most successful season. Anthony?
Yeah, before we get into the next topic, guys, I just want to remind everybody that the USFL is back in Canton, and you can get great seats starting at just $10. Buy your tickets today at the USFL.com. Saturday, June 10th, a bunch of the UCSS crew is going to go down. Thanks to Boogie. Shout out.
Yeah.
So come and get some tickets and come hang out with us down at the USFL game.
Nice, very nice. That's next Saturday, right?
Next Saturday.
Next Saturday.
Boogie got us 15 tickets, so
a week from tomorrow.
We're going to have a squad down at the USFL game
Very
at
nice.
Tom Benson Stadium.
Very, very good. All right, is this year, this coming season, setting up to be the best ever for Myles Garrett?
G, you want to start? You want me to start?
Yeah, I think this year it's so much on the line. Like, usually year after year goes by, and you get excited for the Browns around this time. And in the last couple of years, we've been over the top joyous about the Browns because they brought in big names. We felt we had a franchise quarterback in Baker Mayfield. We made the playoffs. So we've been in the last 5 or so years with these expectation levels. But for myself, I just think this year is special. You take a look at, Jim Donovan going through it, and he's going to go through it, and he's going to still call these games.
Sure.
He's going to still, you look at the passing of Jim Brown. They're going to probably honor him throughout the season. You look at the culmination of this being a make or break year for Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry, and they've tried to do what they can in making this roster better. And then you got Deshaun Watson, first full year under center, and you get an opportunity to see if he's going to bounce back. But for me, I think this year is going to be very special. It's either going to be a make or break year for a lot of people, and I think for Myles Garrett, this is a make or break year when it comes to him putting himself in that level. Right now, he's a great player, and he's an all-time great for the Browns. But he's made no qualms about it. He said up front, I want to be one of the best to ever put the pads on at my position group, right? And so we talked about just a few seconds ago where he's at in that pecking order. And this year, he's going to have one of the best opportunities he's ever going to have to do it. ZaDarius Smith, Obo on the other side. You got 2 pass rushers, and one guy in ZaDarius Smith who's put up large numbers. The best pass rusher, in my opinion, that Myles Garrett has ever played with by far.
Not even close.
Not even close. Tomlinson is a guy that's going to be in the middle. That now you can't just be taking up. Myles Garrett ain't going to get triple teamed because guess what? You got other guys that can make plays. They put him around some of those guys, and I think Jim Schwartz, as I'm looking at it, and I've been just really just in the lab studying the way he goes about putting people in a place. He's not gonna blitz all the time, and that's not what we're saying. But what he is going to do is he's going to take his best players and he's going to say, I'm going to use my natural cheat code. Y'all ain't been using Myles Garrett right.
Yeah.
I got a cheat code. Y'all been lining him up straight up. I ain't never going to line up straight up with him. I'm going to have him with a 3 technique. I'm going to have him moving around. Maybe one day he might be standing up. I don't want you ever to know where Myles Garrett is. And if he can do that, it's going to open him up to play a style of football that now you talk about the way Lawrence Taylor used to play, where you don't know where Lawrence Taylor is.
Unpredictable.
It's unpredictable.
Yeah.
Like, he play outside linebacker, but Lawrence Taylor play everything.
Yeah, I like that. Makes perfect sense. McNuggets?
Yeah, I don't just agree with G. Bush. I'm going to take it to the next level. This is not only his best chance at having a career season, this is his best chance and probably his last best chance to win Defensive Player of the Year award, which is something he's mentioned that he is a personal goal of his for a couple of reasons. One, last year he had 16 sacks. It's tied for second in the league, despite facing the most double teams of any defensive end in football, according to PFF. So despite being double teamed and the only priority for opposing offensive lines, he still finished with 16 sacks, second most in the league. He also had the highest pass rush win rate at 26.5 last year, facing these double teams. Well, you can't double team him this year every play with the addition of ZaDarius Smith, Obo, Tomlinson, Ika, who I do think is a better pass rusher than he gets credit for, Alex Wright, Isaiah McGuire, with all those additions. And if you do decide to still double team Myles Garrett, which I'm not going to blame offensive coordinators for, you're going to leave ZaDarius Smith or Obo or one of those guys against a tight end or a running back in one-on-one coverage, which is essentially suicide for the opposing offense. So he had a 26.5 pass rush win rate last year based off double teams and beating double teams. I don't think it's crazy to think that based on having more single coverages and one-on-one opportunities to get to the quarterback, he can't be in the 30%, which would break PFF's record. And he had 16 sacks last year, facing the most double teams, without any help from anyone else on the defensive line. Taven Bryan was second on the team in sacks last year with 3. I'm not calling it. I wouldn't bet on it, but it also would not shock me if he broke the single-season sack record this year. I'm serious. It would not shock me. I don't think – I wouldn't put my name on it. I wouldn't put money on it, but it's 22.5. I don't think it's absurd to think he could have –
Should be 21.5.
Yeah,
fair.
Yeah,
but I don't think it's absurd for him to have 5-6 more sacks with all the other options on this defensive line. And as you alluded to, Jim Schwartz is going to mix and match him around. He's not always going to be over the right tackle, rushing from that left end position. He's going to be used on the interior, where he is so much more athletic than guards and centers. He'll be used on the same side as ZaDarius Smith. How the hell are you going to block those two when they're both healthy coming at the quarterback? So I'm not calling it, but it definitely would not shock me if we end the season with Myles Garrett being not only Defensive Player of the Year, but holding the NFL single-season sack record.
All right, we're having too much agreement here this morning.
Man, did we share notes beforehand?
I know. I promise you I will disagree on some Guardian stuff and some Nugget stuff.
Right.
Even if I don't believe it, I will be the contrarian.
I want to disagree with you
sake.
guys somewhere, and the reason I do is because I don't want to be that guy that every year says, oh, this Super Bowl, baby.
Super Browns.
I mean,
But it's this year a break. I think
I
if
understand
we're in this
that.
situation next year, we're having different conversations if it doesn't go how we anticipate.
yes. So I'll cherry pick off part of what you said and part of what you said. When you look at the layout of how this season is shaping up before we even get into the schedule, Stefanski's on the hot seat. Andrew Berry's on the hot seat.
Facts.
There are players in this organization that are very much on the hot seat. This either comes together and works, or the 2024 Browns, in my view, will look dramatically different.
Facts.
Dramatically different. So Deshaun Watson, lot of pressure on him.
Huge.
He has got to return to the Houston Texans form that had him in the MVP conversation.
Yep.
Facts.
So because all of these things aren't within the next 2 years or the next 3 years or the next 5 years, it's this year. I think that there's going to be a different feeling in July, when these guys come back full force, ready to get ready for the season, it's going to feel different in Berea. It's not going to be a loosey-goosey, we're house money kind of deal. It's going to be, guys, it's time to put up or shut up, because this is it. For this group, for this core, we got to do it now, because everybody's getting long in the tooth. The contracts are getting a little uncomfortable when it comes to the salary cap. So the pressure for them to do it is probably as high now as it's been at any time in the last decade, even after they came back when Baker took them in the playoffs the year before.
Yeah.
I think it's even more than that, because they're coming off 2 disappointing seasons in a row. And Kevin Stefanski needs his genius credentials checked.
Yep.
He was coach of the year in his first year. It has not gone as planned the last 2. 3 in a row is a problem. It usually costs a coach a job.
Yeah.
So all of that being said, the table is set. But then I'm going to go off what you said. You can't. It's now pick your poison with this club. Last year, teams were like, they have no one on their defensive front that scares us.
At all.
No one not wearing the jersey number 95. So they put all of their resources into stopping 95, and he still had a Pro Bowl season.
All pro.
All pro. So now what you're looking at is you bring in all of these reinforcement troops to bring in waves of fresh legs on the defensive front. To your point, you want to double team them? You're going to learn to live with the consequences from the other guys. If you decide you're going to try to handle them on a single team, it better be an all-pro offensive lineman that handles him.
Damn straight.
Because that's what it's going to take to keep him down. All of that being said, wouldn't be surprised at all if he had at least 20 sacks. I think it's in the cards where he could break the all-time single-season sack record, which would need 23 sacks to do that. But with the added game, the 17-game schedule now, it's a little more than a sack a game. I think it's doable for him.
Yeah.
I think that there's no reason at all to believe why he couldn't be in the Defensive Player of the Year running. And if all of that happens, I think we're talking about an 11-6, a 12-5, and a trip to the playoffs.
And one more thing I didn't mention. We all are in agreement, or Jay, I think you are, that Watson's going to be pretty damn good this year. That we think he can get, and I don't want.
I'm still hopeful. I'm not confident.
Fair, and I don't want to sidetrack this, but
Right.
if Watson's good,
Yes.
the Browns should be able to score a lot of points this year.
That's the hope.
And they'll be ahead in a lot of games, unlike last year where they were coming from behind.
Correct.
And that leads to more passing opportunities and pass rushing opportunities, to G's point, for Myles Garrett to get after the quarterback.
Right. When a team's running it 12 times in a row,
Yeah.
Myles Garrett, you might as well take Myles Garrett and
Can't get a
send him
sack.
to the locker room.
Exactly.
Because he's essentially rendered ineffective. And so if you're putting your opponent down more than a score in the second half, now instead of your quarterback having 22 dropbacks, he might have 32.
Yeah.
And that obviously increases the chances.
Let me
for
ask you
sacks.
guys this, just for a little, hopefully a little dissension. We're not all in agreement here. What's more likely this year? Myles Garrett breaks the sack record or doesn't lead the Browns in sacks?
Oh, he'll lead the Browns in sacks.
Yeah, I think he's going to lead in sacks. The sack
Oh,
record.
no. Or someone else will lead the Browns in sacks. So either Myles Garrett breaks the sack record or someone not named Myles Garrett leads the Browns in sacks.
Okay. So
Sorry,
flip it.
Sorry, yes.
Ooh.
I just thought of that.
More likely?
I don't know that either one's going to happen. I just, barring an injury, which you can never predict,
Yeah.
95 is leading the Browns in sacks.
That's what I'm saying. What's more likely, the fact that he breaks the record
Well,
or
yeah,
ZaDarius Smith?
Because I don't think I think there's no chance at all anyone on the Browns gets more sacks than Myles Garrett if Myles Garrett plays the bulk of the games.
Do you agree with that, G?
Yeah, I haven't. It's too hard because I haven't envisioned it. I haven't seen it, and I know ZaDarius Smith can. Right. I mean, I went back and watched all his games from Green Bay. And
Powerful.
And he's just. I mean, he's versatile. He's another guy he does his best pass rushing over guards. He has speed. He transitions to power very well. And this is a guy. How many? He's at 8 seasons. He has 54.5 sacks right now. You take a look. This guy is a bona fide top-tier pass rusher opposite Myles Garrett. However,
But he's not in Myles Garrett's league.
however,
No.
Myles Garrett has too many traits. Like Myles Garrett is pretty much faster than most of every defensive lineman. He's probably stronger than all of them. And the thing that makes Myles Garrett so good is his bend is so elite. Like, Jadeveon Clowney a lot of players play stiff, right? And when you
Without the bend.
Without the bend. His bend is like he can transition his power and momentum from a crouching position to the quarterback while, think about it, he's 285, 280, whatever the case is. So if he's that low, his body has to support 285 exploding, right? But then he's underneath a 320-pound tackle. So look at the amount of pressure and torque that is with 320 above you, 285, you do the math. That's 700 some odd pounds that he's still able to turn and bend and keep his body and momentum upright.
It's like a dragster that can corner.
Yeah.
Right.
Like those are built for inline. He's got that inline straight speed, but he's got the agility of a pure athlete.
It's crazy.
And there's nothing more beautiful to me than when he comes wide around the edge and you see that bend in full display. And I love the still shots because oftentimes in video, it happens too fast to appreciate it. But when you see a still picture.
He's one of the only players where the stills might be equivalent to the actual video.
It's unbelievable.
His body is about 6 inches off the ground.
And you're asking yourself, how is he able to support that weight, to turn that corner without losing his feet? And the answer is, go look at his workout videos, his freakish workout videos.
And Von Miller's another guy who has similar, he's not as big, but similar bend, both recruited and coached by the same guy at A&M.
Wow.
Terry Price might be doing something right down in College
Yeah,
Station.
I think so. I mean, that's two good ones to have on your resume. Yeah. A lot of natural ability in both those guys, too.
Obviously.
But you can miscoach that. That's not always a home run. Okay, you have another read before we move on?
Yeah, so we reached out to the YouTube chat and asked them the same question we asked you guys, and whenever we do that, it's brought to you by PCC Airfoils. Looking for a job with career advancement and great benefits? PCC Airfoils is a leading manufacturer in Northeast Ohio, and all locations in PCC Airfoils in Eastlake, Menor, Wickliffe, and Minerva are hiring for all positions starting at $18 and up. Plus, get full benefit package, paid time off, and signing bonus. Apply online at precast.com/careers to learn more. So, guys, we went to the chat and we asked them, is this the best year for Defensive Player of the Year?
Before you answer, before you answer that, let's guess what the chat says.
85% yes.
79% yes.
We go 65% yes.
Mike, you are the closest. It's about a 60-40 split. 60
Wow,
yes,
okay.
40 no.
Shout out to the chat. Wait, 60-40 no?
No, 60-40 yes.
Okay.
60%
Yeah.
yes,
Shout out to the chat
40%
for
no.
being reasonable.
Yeah, I thought it would be way, way
I
higher
did
than
too.
that.
I
It
did
felt
too.
like, yes, this is his best chance yet.
I
He's
too.
got the most help.
No. Was you asking about the Hall of Fame or best chance to win?
Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then that's
Defensive Player of the Year.
Then can we put a poll? Ask who's a Hall of Famer right now. Just curious. Do a 2-minute
Earl's
poll.
on it.
Earl, thank you.
And while Earl does that,
I think that would be less than 50%.
Well, we'll see the homers.
If he get, I think the watermark. If you look at the like, there's a lot of those with a lot of sacks. You got Dolman, Kevin Green. There's a lot of people. Howie Long. You got to really be in the 100. Like the 100 is the bar. Like, okay.
He's only played 6 years. Like
Yeah.
he feels like he's been around forever because he's been through
I know.
3 different Browns regimes now.
Well, and he came in and was successful right away.
Right away, but he's only been around for 6 years.
His first play, he got a sack.
Crazy.
Third, yeah.
First play.
Crazy.
I was there that day. It was, you could feel the electricity in the air.
I'll get one of my buddies from College Station has been covering A&M for years, and he's the Adam Schefter of A&M athletics. I'll gotta get him on to tell us some Miles stories. He's got some good
I bet he's
Miles
got
stories.
some crazy Myles Garrett
I'll get him on. Steve, remind me to text Billy Lucci after this.
Okay.
All right, and before we get to our next topic about Shannon Sharpe leaving Undisputed, I want to remind everybody that Lorain Community College classes are up, and you can sign up today at lorainccc.edu. Your classes, your future, Lorain County Community College.
Great.
Do you know how I know Anthony's learning from me?
How's that?
Because he forgot to say Lorain County Community College. And I did that for the first 2 weeks of this read. Lorain County Community, there is a third C, LCCC. Disrespecting Jason Lloyd like that, Anthony.
Say Cuyahoga.
Cuyahoga.
All right.
Cuyahoga.
That was
man.
an Earl joke.
Undefeated.
We have a special top 5 for Mike later today. I just want to say I should have added this. Me and Mike spend too much time together. That should be on the
That's
list.
it.
You're
for
actually
anything.
brothers now.
The two of us, and
official.
like Earl included, the 3 of us spend too much time together, and we're texting constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah. We work out together now every once in a while, too.
I know. I
Look at
see
y'all
that.
being good.
I see that. That's how you know you've got good coworkers, when you willingly spend time with them away from work.
Facts.
Y'all
And
trying
you
to-
guys certainly do that.
But, you know.
Yeah,
All right, so our
begrudgingly.
next topic, though, is Shannon Sharpe. He got bought out, and he's leaving Undisputed. And, Jay, I wanted your take on this because he's leaving behind Skip.
Yeah, I know he is. I just don't know enough about it right now. I don't know if this was Shannon saying, I'm done with this, or if this was Fox saying, this isn't going to work. Can we show the clip from the day that the two of them got it? It's a common.
I was going to ask you that.
Let me see if I can find it on Twitter real quick.
Okay, you can just Google Shannon Sharpe and it'll come up.
It'll be probably the first one that comes
When
up.
I wasn't watching the show live, I just don't have time in my busy life to watch those shows live anymore. I typically only see the clips that go viral. That go viral. Because I don't even see Twitter enough to see like daily clips. But whenever either First Take or Undisputed something goes off the rails, I'm usually texted that clip by tons of coworkers. Because a lot of my former coworkers are still at First Take, and a lot of my former coworkers followed Skip the Fox. So I hear from and get these things on a regular basis. The day that they had the dust up about the Damar Hamlin topic, I said, uh-oh, there's a divorce coming. Because it crossed the line of this is for show. This is a television show.
It got personal.
And it got real personal.
It got personal.
And I was there in between Skip and Jalen Rose in one instance and Chris Carter in another instance. And it never ends well. It almost always ends in divorce because it gets personal and then there's hatred involved. The one thing I can tell you that is absolutely a fact, when Skip and Stephen A. worked together for all the years they worked together, there was a mutual respect. It never got personal. It got heated. It got heated a lot. And a lot of people thought things were done or said that crossed the line, but they weren't there in the commercial break, that as soon as we dipped commercial, Skip and Stephen A. both reached their hands across the table and said that was a good segment, no hard feelings.
Yeah.
Those two had that unbelievable gear where they both had big egos. You have to be in that position. But they could also check their ego with one another. They couldn't do it. Skip with Jalen Rose, Skip with Chris Carter, Skip with Shannon. Shannon is one of the most competitive guys you'll ever meet.
Still, he was ready to fight the Grizzlies at a Lakers game earlier this season.
He got tossed.
Yeah.
He got thrown out of the arena.
We have the clip, by the way. Anthony, you want to play the clip?
Okay, so if you haven't seen it, this was the day that, for me, this relationship, this partnership was doomed for this ending.
2 days after Damar Hamlin,
Yeah.
Anthony could play it.
Understand? There's something you want to share this morning.
Good morning, yes.
Morning.
There's been a lot of speculation of why I wasn't on air yesterday, and I won't get into speculation or conjecture or innuendo, but I will say this. In watching that game on Monday night, what happened to Damar Hamlin struck me a little different. As a brotherhood in the NFL, when injuries happen, when we know injuries are a part of the game, I've seen guys suffer ACLs and Achilles tear, but I've never seen anybody have to be revived and fight for their life on the field. So it struck me a little differently because I remember seeing my brother paralyzed on the field temporarily, and he was able to regain focus. Skip tweeted something, and although I disagree with the tweet, and hopefully Skip would take it down, but I didn't want it.
Well, time out. I'm not going to take it down because I stand by what I tweeted.
Skip, let me finish.
All right, okay.
Go ahead.
No, you go.
Go ahead, let's go, Jen.
Okay.
I mean, I cannot even get through a monologue without you interrupting me.
Well,
you could have came back, Skip.
Well, I thought.
Skip, just let.
I didn't know you were going to bring up
No,
this.
I was just going to say, Skip, I didn't want to yesterday to get into a situation where Damar Hamlin was the issue. We should have been talking about him and not get into your tweet. That's what I was going to do. But you can't even let me finish my opening monologue without you interrupting.
Okay. I was under the impression you weren't going to bring this up because nobody here had a problem with that tweet.
No. Clearly, the bosses wanted you to offer explanations, so clearly somebody.
No, they did not have. Nobody.
Let's go, Jen.
Thoughts and prayers remain with.
Yeah, I've been in that same spot where you're watching this thing go down, and it's like in real time in slow motion. You're watching a train come off the tracks.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to pick a side on that. I would only say this: when Skip picks a side,
You ain't moving him.
he's not budging. He will never say, I'm sorry. He will never say, I'm wrong. He will never retract something that he said. I've never seen him do it. In all the years I worked with him, I've never seen him do that.
You know, Jay, I thought that was the first sign, but for me, what sealed it was they came back a couple months later, right? And they're having a conversation about Tom Brady, right? And then the Tom Brady conversations, Skip tells Shannon, like, hey, man, you're jealous of Tom Brady. And Shannon takes his glasses off, and Skip's like, put your glasses back on.
Yeah, like, what are you going to do?
Like, come on, like, what are you talking about, bro? And he's like, listen, Skip, I'm not worried about Tom Brady. Like, I'm in the Hall of Fame, too. Like, you act like I'm garbage. He was like, nobody don't care about that. So it was, you saw in real time, you seen Shannon's face where it was like, he felt like, oh, well, he made it personal, like me versus Tom Brady, and you talked about me as a player. Like, I think, and I was going to ask you, do you believe that intrinsically when you do shows like that, right? It's the very rare 1% or 2% of people that can talk and say certain things and then still leave, break up, come back, and do the show again. Do you believe that those types of shows always will eventually end in something like that? Because what you're talking about is combative. Like, are, it's not nothing that you agree on. You practice combativeness, and it's kind of hard not to cross the line that you may not know.
Well, and to add to that, let's just take a look at the personality type that is demanded to become a driving force in television.
Type A alpha dog.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so there's no back down in any of these guys. Skip, Stephen A., Shannon. Shannon, by the way, is as good as anyone that's done it.
He's phenomenal.
Oh,
He
Shannon's
is
phenomenal.
Tremendous at what he does.
His following is
massive.
Top notch.
I thought that there'd be a lot of blowback, like, let him go, let him walk. But a lot of the social stuff I read, Shannon's got a lot of people that are in his corner on this. And I will say, and I love Skip Bayless with everything I have. He's a tremendous human being. The one area I wish, and look, I'm not in the business of changing people, but if I could wish one change upon him, it would be that he pay a higher respect to the athletes that have done it at that level.
Yeah.
When things went south with Jalen, what precipitated all of that was he asked Jalen, well, what did you ever win?
Yeah.
Well, you can't say to an iconic college basketball star and a guy who had an incredible professional
He's a good pro.
career.
He was a very good pro.
You can't one-up him by saying, well, you never won a championship. And he did the same thing to Chris Carter. And Chris was like, I'm done with this cat. I'll never work with this cat again. And it was pretty much both ways. Like, after the Jalen thing, there was a band that was like, well, Jalen's not coming on the set. Now, the next day, there was a cleanup show, I used to call them. Mm-hmm. So we got a cleanup on aisle 6.
And you said, well, actually, I don't know if you could say that.
There was a meeting, a long meeting before the show. And if you haven't seen it, you can YouTube it. Jalen basically, after Skip gave the dig that what have you won, Jalen said, if we're going to play that game, didn't you average 1.2 points per game or 2.1 points, whatever it was, your senior year as a point guard in high school? And Skip, I'd never seen Skip need a standing 8 count in all the years I worked with him.
Yep.
But that day, I felt Skip was on his heels and needed a Control-Alt-Delete.
Give me that 20-second timeout, coach.
Yes.
Well, but the next day, didn't he come out and try to justify?
So what happened was, the show was in a transitionary period where it was becoming all debate. First Take used to be, we would have we'd interview Michael or Magic Johnson, and then we'd do a segment on the upcoming Monday Night Football game, and then we would do a debate segment. And we'll be back at the debate set at 11:45, and when we come back, we're going to debate X, Y, and Z. But then we would go back into the variety coverage. We would, have guests, A-list guests, and we would do everything in the show. But we had a new coordinating producer that came on board that felt like this is a debate show. This is a 2-hour nothing but debate show. So we had transitioned into that world, and Skip was clearly this driving force of that show. And at that time, Stephen A. was not an everyday
He's one of the
he was one of the rotating guys that would come in. Well, Jalen made some other attacks on Skip. He said, you said that you idolized Pistol Pete Maravich. You were Water Pistol Pete. Well, Skip can throw stones, but when you throw them back, you better duck because he's coming napalm,
Because then the gloves is off.
The gloves are off.
Yep.
And so what happened was We got through the show. It was incredibly awkward. Incredibly awkward. The next day, there was this huge pre-show meeting where Skip felt like he had been denigrated and we were going to spend, I still can't believe we did this, and I voiced my disapproval of it. I didn't want to do it, but I was told, no, this is how it's going to go. Skip wants to explain what happened his senior year in high school. And I said, with all due respect to Skip, no one cares.
Yeah.
No one cares about that. I mean, that wasn't even where the debate came off the rails.
Yeah.
Are we going to give Jalen an opportunity to explain his...
Right.
He signed a 7-year, $126 million contract in the NBA, and why he deserved that and probably more.
And so I just felt like we were putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
So we're gonna address the elephant in the room, which wasn't Skip disrespecting a accomplished professional basketball player by asking him what he won. We're gonna give him a platform to explain why he didn't start his senior year. And Skip was passionate about this, man. He told me, I feel strongly about this, Jay. The coach's son was on the team, and he didn't like me because I was better than him. And in a summer tournament, the year before that, I was the MVP of the summer tournament. I averaged 14 points a game, and I beat his son, and he didn't like me, and he benched me. All of that may be factually correct, but it happened in the 70s or 60s, and nobody cares.
Yeah, no one cares.
Bro.
Our audience
No one
cared
cares.
zero about that, and I felt like that was one of the times where I felt we lost the ball on the show.
One thing with those kind of shows, and Jay, you're right, it isn't. To be in a one-on-one debate setting like that, especially in a 2-hour show with millions and millions of viewers, you have to be a 1%er, a type A alpha dog, and you better be ready to back up whatever you say.
That's right.
Because there's
And
no
Skip is that
shield.
guy.
There's no shield. And Skip's, say what you want about Skip, like him or hate him, Mount Rushmore of that.
He's the best. I will
Stephen
say,
A.
Skip is, to me,
The
number one. Stephen A. is 1AA.
But
Like,
they're
he
Mount,
is
they're Mount
right
Rushmores.
behind him.
Shannon Sharpe might be on that Mount Rushmore. Like,
I think so.
He
three
might
of
put
the
himself up there.
all-time greats at doing what they do.
Correct.
And when you have those guys, you're going to butt heads.
Yeah,
and I do
to your
think
point, like, it's going to happen eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, but now, what astounded me with Skip and Stephen A. is it never happened. Skip left the show, not because there was any beef with Stephen A. Fox was dangling $7 million a year or whatever the number was then in front of him to come. So I never blamed Skip for that. Skip, that was a smart business move. Skip is one of the smartest, most hardworking guys I've ever worked with, I've ever seen in television. He is committed to his craft like no one I've ever seen. Stephen A's right there with him. But what astounded me with Skip and Stephen A. was there was never any beef. There was never anything where I felt like I was going to have to stand up and push the two aside. It was real. It was genuine. It was raw at times, but it never crossed the line. With Skip and others, it did. And now
I wonder if
it's because they're both sports writers.
and that's
why.
what I was going to say. I wonder if
Yes.
it's because Stephen A. didn't have the traditional I played at an elite
Yes,
level
that is.
difference that's kind of what has always gotten
Skip was
Skip
a good
in trouble.
high school basketball player, although his stats clearly
What-
didn't
yeah.
show it. Skip was a good player. Stephen A. was a very good player who played collegiate.
In college, yep.
But what happens is there's levels to this.
Yes.
You know that you played at a high collegiate level. You played Division I college football. That puts you in a very elite company.
But it goes higher than that, though.
But then you got NFL guys that had cups of coffee. Then you got NFL guys that had nice careers. Then you got NFL guys that had Hall of Fame careers. And with Chris Carter, when the Chris Carter thing happened and it came off the rails, I was kind of shocked that Skip completely dismissed his playing career by saying, "What did you ever win?"
Yeah.
I'm like that. He has a
That
gold,
goes below the belt.
that he has a gold jacket.
Yes.
Like that's like we talked about Joe Thomas and we said, Joe, which is a bigger thing? Would you have wanted to have a Super Bowl title or a Super Bowl ring or the gold jacket? And he said, man, this is a rough one, man.
Tough.
The gold jacket in the NFL is probably one of the most difficult things to get into. This is one of the biggest things that you could possibly actually get in your
pinnacle.
life.
It's the
pinnacle.
biggest individual award you can get in professional sports is to be inducted for your body of work.
Yes.
Not a year, not a game, body of work.
It's not NBA where the NBA talks about your high school and collegiate mixed in. It's the NFL where it's the top 1%, and you are the 1% of the 1% at that level. So when you say, what have you done? These guys are incensed. They're like, hold on, you must not know.
That's a level of disrespect that is, they're not going to sit there and say, well, yeah, you're right, I never won anything, but I played for 17 years and, made hundreds of millions of dollars during it. I just wish Skip would never go there. Yeah. We had a fascinating show after that, after the Chris Carter show. I think Robert Smith might have been a part of that. It was kind of a panel discussion where we had pro athletes on, and then I can't remember if Stephen A was a part of that or not, but we had Skip types and others. It may have been Stephen A. It was one of the most riveting shows I'd ever done. In fact, we blew through a lot of commercial breaks because it was so good. Mm-hmm. They were like, we're not breaking this, stay with this. And the discussion was, did you have to play the game at a high level to be able to analyze it successfully?
Right.
Because the pros will tell you what Jim Mora famously said in a post-game interview rant. All of the media, he said, you think you know, but you don't, and you never will. And what he was saying there was, it's one thing to sit up in the press box where there's no fire coming at you and watch and write. It's another thing to do it at a high level for a very long time. There is a level of understanding that I believe you have had to have played the game for a long time before you can throw all the stones.
It doesn't mean you can't be good.
I agree.
But there's another level to, and gee, I'm sure you thought in football. I played football 1 year of my life. Pee Wee, second grade. I hated it. I played left tackle. I got pancaked every play. It was the most terrible decision. The coach was an idiot. I don't know. I was 42 pounds, whatever. I will never understand the intricacies of offensive line as well as someone who played. I could study, I could watch, I could tell you what I think's important.
But you can tell me basketball principles.
But I cannot tell you to the level of G-Can or someone higher, hand placement, if this guy takes a faint step left and he's going to come right, why that throws off.
It's okay to back down to that, too. Like, I wish Skip just would have said, you know what, Jalen, I'm going to defer to you on this because you've done it. So, but Skip is adamant. He thinks he knows the game better than any coach, player, or general manager, because he's watched it and studied it for his entire life. And he does know a lot about it. Yeah. But I just think there's another level that to reach that next level, you have to have been in the battle at some point at a high level.
I've been looking at it like this, like even with PFF, right? We talk about how those grades so accurate. There is one thing that is very minute that they're missing. What is the play call?
And I've always said that. But by the way, that's the elephant in the room.
Yes.
How do you know if Myles Garrett carried out his assignment? You don't know what his assignment was.
Unless the league and the teams are giving you a call sheet that says
they would never
do that. This play.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be here.
They're not getting that.
It's just conjecture.
That's right.
It's the best you're gonna get. It's an educated guess.
That's right.
And so you really, even with Tyvis, Tyvis played in the league. When it comes to defensive backs, I'm not gonna be telling him what the defensive backs is going to do. That's his assignments. That's his lane.
When he does his breakdowns, he says, based on the formation, I think they're doing
right.
this.
I think they're in cover two.
They messed up the breakdown.
Know. And if they are in cover two, then this player's responsibility is X, and this one's Y. But even then, there was an example this year where Tyvis on the Jets onside kick, he diagrammed it and he said these guys are just out of position. But then he came back and found out because he checked.
Yeah, he went to talk.
That's the way they were playing it.
Yeah,
and it was wrong.
Back and check with somebody,
right? He thought it was wrong the first time because he goes, "There's no way someone would coach him up like this."
But they did,
and it turned out to be a catastrophe, and that's why
he's not here
it happened.
Anymore.
And that coach is
but
no
you're
longer
right.
here.
Tyvis said, "I mean, there's only one way to play an onside kick, and it's this way." And the fact that they didn't. But then later in the season, they missed another onside kick, and he really did some digging with special teams coaches. He's like, "No." That's kind of how it was coached.
That's how they're moving.
Okay, well now we know, but the PFF grades they don't know.
Yeah.
But there's so much nuance and so much going on. There's a reason we put professional athletes in the booth as analysts.
Yep.
There's a reason for that. There are 32 teams in the NFL. There are 32 NFL radio teams. 31 of them have a former player as the analyst. Who doesn't? The Browns. when you watch a game on television, there's always a former player in the color analyst role.
Yes.
They just have a better understanding
Yes.
of the game. And I always thought that as much as I love Skip and as much as I've admired him and as much as he's the greatest to ever do it, in my opinion, I just wish that he would have been a little more reverential, a little more respectful to the former players that have a very valuable skill set that they bring. If you disagree with them in opinion, that's fine. But when one of them is telling you, no, Skip, this is a zone, and Skip's saying, no, it's a man.
You're going to trust the guy who
I'm going to
played.
trust the guy that did it.
Anthony, last point, and then get a read in here. But to Skip and Shannon, if you guys ever want to come on the show to discuss, we'll pull up a seat. Open invite.
Always welcome.
Open invite. I know you've been working on trying to get Skip. His schedule's a little wonky. We'll keep working on that.
Right.
Shannon, you too. If you ever want to pull up.
Hold on, McNuggets.
Yes, sir.
You said you had a suggestion that who should be on the panel with Skip.
Oh, yeah, I do want to see Draymond Green take that spot.
Ooh, that'd be great.
Draymond Green just retire. He would probably get as much money.
Wait, he did retire?
No, I'm saying he should.
Oh, okay, yeah, no.
He already does his podcast. He does all the media stuff.
Yeah.
I know his player options for $30 million, so he won't get that much to do it. But
Sure.
Draymond Green is out of his mind, and he will say anything to anyone and will not hold back. Similar to how Shannon
Draymond's
Sharpe
going to be a
is.
star in the media.
Draymond Green is the next Shannon Sharpe, and I think him versus Skip doing it out because they have already kind of jousted
I
on
think
Twitter.
Skip
so.
may have tweeted something yesterday where he said, I'm not going to comment on this right now. So really the question mark is, was this precipitated by Skip going to Fox executives saying, I can't do the show with him anymore? Or was this Shannon going to Fox officials and saying, I can't do this anymore with this guy. I could physically hurt him.
He could get his own. He'll land on his feet. He's gonna be fine.
He's going to be a free agent for a minute. His podcast is incredible.
crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah.
And so is Skip's, by the way.
Yeah.
They both do good numbers. Yeah.
So you may remember, if you watch this show regularly, we had Stephen A. back in January or February. I can't remember
January,
what it was.
yep.
We had Stephen A. on, and I think the last question I asked him was, will we ever see a reunion of any sorts between you and Skip? And he definitively passed on that. He said, no, that ship has sailed. We had great years together. We were a wonderful team. We're each doing great things on our own right now, but I don't see it in the cards. And sadly, I don't either. As much as I would like to see a reunion between, can you imagine? That breaks the bank. That breaks
you can
the
put it on
internet.
pay-per-view. I'd pay $99.99 to watch those two debate, and the topics have to be: was Tim Tebow a good quarterback? Is LeBron clutch? It has to be just run the classics.
Yeah.
I don't care, Jay. You have to be a part of it if they do.
No,
Run it back.
I'll watch it.
First take, last
I'll
take. I
watch
think
it.
you called it. Anthony, it is 12:12, which means we've been in the lunch hour for 12 minutes now. We forgot to tell us who it's by.
Yeah, who sponsors the lunch
so
hour?
as always, the lunch hour is brought to you by Colleague Companies Championship. See your favorite golf legends play in the Colleague Companies Championship July 12th through July 16th at the famous Firestone Country Club. Fun, family-friendly events all week long featuring a new fan zone experience, free attendance for kids, and concerts every night. There is something for everyone. Learn more at colleaguegolf.com. So, guys, we're going to pivot here to the Guardians, and we're going to get into our Guardians topic today. I'm working on our guest right now. She's having a little issues connecting into our system.
Right.
So just go ahead and take it away with the Guardians game last night.
Yeah, I'll quickly say author Elena Sharps, Elena. I'm not sure. She was scheduled to be on the show at 12:15. She's put together this really interesting panel on how to help NFL teams navigate some pretty choppy waters. The domestic violence issue, player safety issues. She's worked with a couple NFL teams already. We just thought she'd be a good resource for the show to sort of pick her brain on a lot of things that are top of mind in the NFL. We're trying to connect with her. If we do, we'll bring her on. In the meantime, we're going to jump ahead on our rundown, and we're going to go down to the Guardians, losing 7-6 last night. I've said this a couple times this year, and I know it's hyperbole, and I am absolutely, when it comes to the Guardians, I am Duke of Knee-Jerk.
Yes.
I am absolutely Duke of Knee-Jerk.
That's why
You two switch spots.
We could not wait to get Jay in here because, I asked Jay, Memorial Day, you got to wait till Memorial Day to start talking about. And now
you
we're
had
here.
said at the beginning of the season, where do you expect them to be at the
The
third,
third,
when we get to a third of the way through the season? And I said they're going to be 500.
Yeah.
Now, they're 24-29.
Yeah.
They're 5 under 500. What 25 and 31, I'm sorry. They're 6 under. Had they won last night, and they should have, then those numbers would read 26 and 30 and 2.5 games out.
Yep.
So the big difference here is that, or no, they'd be 3.5 games out, right? Yeah, they would.
They'd be closer.
They lost a game.
Yeah,
so they'd be 3.5 games out. These games are so critical. I've said a couple of times this was the ugliest loss of the year. I feel like last night it really was the ugliest loss of the year for a lot of reasons. They have nice momentum. They were really putting things together. They're starting to score runs. They've got 28 runs now on this 4-game road trip. The bats are coming to life. They were up 6-3, and I thought this is it. This is going to be a victory, and they just snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. Stephen came in, gave up 3 runs in the 8th, and then Eli Morgan was terrible in the 9th. Loaded the bases. They won it on a sac fly.
I got a question.
It felt horrible.
I have to add. This is what I don't understand sometimes. We don't question Tito 99 out of 100 times, and he has earned the benefit of the doubt for us not to question him. He pitched Clase A on Tuesday night when the Guardians were down 3.
Right.
He then pitched him Wednesday night when they were up 4.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he was not available for the game last night.
I don't have an answer for you. I'm asking the same question.
That is what I do not understand and not have. Listen, the bullpen we talked about last year was the strength of this team.
Yep.
And bullpen year to year is the most variant of any portion of a baseball team.
Yeah.
Some years it's great, some years not. This year it has not been good for the Guardians. But to use your ace, and I know Clase A has not been the same class that he was last year, but to use him down 3 and then up 4.
Well, down 3 is the one that I'm like, what are you doing?
2 non-safe situations. I'll live with the up 4. And he pitched great in both, by the way. He threw 21 pitches total in those 2 games.
Yeah.
But he's not pitching 3 out of 4 nights.
No.
And I don't understand for the life of me, and maybe Tuesday it was just to get him a little work because he hadn't pitched in a while, but then this series means more than the Baltimore series does, and it meant more than the St. Louis series does.
The problem is,
and
you
to
won't
blow
get
through him
Tito
early,
to admit that. He won't.
I know, and he's earned the benefit of the doubt.
But the fact of the matter is, fans know these games.
It was a bad
different.
decision. Like, straight up, Tito, it was a bad decision, and very rarely can we say, objectively, that was a mistake by Tito. That was a mistake by Tito.
I agree, and I think it had an impact on what we saw on the field. Look, no one's running away with this division. The Twins starting pitching has been very, very good.
Yeah.
Very good. And they're hitting home runs. But, the team's averages are exactly the same.
Yep.
One
They're
just hits for
averaging
power
more than 1 run a game than we are. And the reason is they've hit in the, I think, high 70s in home runs, and we've got like 33.
Yeah.
So this team's lack of power is inexplicable. And what it's going to lead to is us saying bye-bye to Shane Bieber. He won't be here after the trade deadline. I've seen already some outlets are reporting that he is going to be traded. I think you have to start making a real hard decision by June 1st, which we're past. Not just are you in it.
Right.
Because that's the wrong question to ask.
Can you win it?
Can this team, as constituted, or without one piece that we go get from a trade, win the World Series? And the answer to that is now, for me, a definitive no. Yeah. And once you get to that sitting point, you've got to be responsible, and you've got to trade Shane Bieber while he still has 1.5 years left on his deal, so he can give a season 2 chances at a World Series. So I think he's gone. I hate to say it. The reason that also making that decision a little easier is the fact that Logan Allen has come up and pitched extremely well. So has Tanner Bybee. You've got Gavin Williams in the pipeline. Now, those 3 are coming. Savali comes off the DL tonight. He pitches tonight. On Sunday, Tristan McKenzie will make his debut, and you hope that he's the Tristan McKenzie pre-shoulder injury, but he's missed 2 months.
Yeah.
So there's probably going to be a little bit of time there. But I think I'm not giving up on the season. Don't take this the wrong way. If I'm calling the shots, I have already made the decision. This team cannot win a World Series.
The lack of power is too.
It's stunning.
It's debilitating, because what happens is, you saw the perfect case scenario yesterday. You're up 6-3. You look like you're dominating.
And you did it without power, really.
You're doing it. You're getting, the bats are going. You're getting runs. You've worked your way into a position where you think, okay, let's close this out and get out of here with a win. And now we get 2, essentially, from playing with the Twins because it's in the division. And you see how devastating the 2 to 3 home runs are. You're down 3, all of a sudden it's tie ball game.
I was wrong too on the standings. They would be 2.5 out.
Yeah.
They're 4.5 out now. They were
Minnesota
3.5 out
one.
yesterday.
Yeah.
So it's 2 games in the standings. So if you win that and you're 2.5 out with 3 head-to-head to play, you could leave Minneapolis in first place. Now
correct.
the best you can hope for is to sweep the last 3, and even then you're a game and a half out.
Yeah.
Your point about being competitive in the division and competitive in the the overall
the
landscape
goal
of
here is
baseball
not to
different.
win the Central.
You could win the Central at 82-80.
Yes.
Which does not
no
make you a
shot.
good team, and that would put you 5th in the AL.
But you're
East
not
this
winning
year.
the World Series.
You're not winning the World Series.
And a lot of folks, I've had this conversation with some other fans, and they're like, hey, a couple of years ago, the Braves were under 500 on August 10th, and they won the World Series. That's true. But they had superstars on that team,
Yes.
and they had bats that could deliver home runs. This team just is, there's a power shortage.
Speaking of bats, the Guardians have scored 5+ runs in 4 straight games now.
Yeah.
Do you know the last time they've done that?
I'd say
I'm not asking anything crazy. 5
No.
runs in 4 straight games.
Well, definitely last year. I don't know that they did it last year, but it definitely wasn't this season.
Mid-July last year.
Yeah.
Almost an entire calendar year. 148 games since they had scored 5+ runs in 4 games.
Yeah.
And when you don't have power
a bad
like that,
loss.
you have to be able to close games. The Guardians are 2-9 in tied ball games heading into the 9th inning this year. And
last
that's where
year they would've
that
been
was their
9-2
bread and
or
butter.
something.
Everything broke in their favor last year. It's gone the opposite this year.
Yeah.
I'm with you. You got to trade Bieber at this point.
So it's really tough. I think you got to trade Bieber as well. We had our guest.
We had her. We lost her.
We lost her. We're trying to
She
get her
just
back.
came back on. She blinked out there for a second.
Okay, but we have her.
Yeah, we have
So,
her.
G, I'm going to let you bring her in because
Yes.
you were the first one that made contact with her. Tell us who's joining the show now.
Well, this is Elena Sharps. She reached out to me.
Fix the graphic, guys.
As you know, she reached out to me after the Damar Hamlin situation. So one of the things is I'm being critical of the NFL, right? I've never been a person who's held my tongue on certain things that I think the NFL does wrong. And she reached out to me because she had saw some things go down, obviously with the Deshaun Watson thing, obviously when you go back and look at Ray Rice and some domestic things. But it was interesting. She reached out to me and said, you really spoke really passionately about Damar Hamlin, and I'm coming up with a program to kind of help NFL teams navigate, as you said, some tough waters when it comes to some of the things that's going on, whether it's player safety, whether there's financial literacy, whether it's domestic violence issues. And she reached out and said, hey, would you mind being a consultant and saying, talking about some different things? And she was able to, say, not only am I interested in some of those things, I'm not interested in bashing the NFL. I'm interested in coming up with a program that can help them have some foresight and kind of prevent some of these things from happening. So, Elena, thank you so much for coming on with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So, Elena, of all the stuff, and there's a lot going on and a lot to process there, what do you think is the single biggest issue the NFL needs to get a handle of? Because between the domestic violence and the safety issue, those are 2 obviously massive issues that the league would love to be able to get in front of and say that they're showing progress in those areas. And they're trying to tout progress in those areas all the time, but I don't think it's real. I know G. Bush doesn't think it's real. Which of the problems facing the league, in your view, is the most pressing?
So I'm looking at things from a domestic violence and sexual assault situation. I think that the league needs to be more proactive in their approach instead of reactive. Get to the root cause of why these situations keep happening. I think there needs to be more awareness and education in the domestic violence and sexual assault realm. What a lot of players may think is consensual in a lot of sexual situations may not be actual consensual contact. And I think that there is education that needs to be had around that.
Elena, we talked about that, and specifically we've seen that in kind of the Deshaun Watson case. And when we talked off camera, you said something that was very interesting. There's a lot of times that people, their behavior or what they're doing, it may not be conscious, right? It may be something that we get in an organization, in the workplace. We may live by a certain code because we're not thinking, we're not aware of what we're saying and how that looks and how that is being perceived. Do you think that's an issue that the NFL and other professional teams have?
I do. I think that there needs to be education on personal boundaries, because I don't think that we are self-aware a lot of times of other people's reaction, right? It all comes down to interpretation. I may interpret things one way, you may interpret things another. So I think that there needs to be some self-awareness that is taught so that people can start paying attention to people's reactions to what they're saying and what they're doing.
Has the league made progress?
Risk-based decisions.
Elena, do you think that the league has made progress in this area?
I think the league has made progress, but there's still more progress that needs to be made. A different approach to what they are doing today. Because if what they were doing today was actually working, we wouldn't continue to see these incidents pop up in the news.
One of the things that I've heard, I've had both league officials and former players tell me this, that there's a spotlight that is put on every single instance of domestic violence in the NFL, because obviously they're in the public eye and these guys are all targets for news stories. Anytime something happens particularly negative, the media comes out of the woodwork and they want to tell these stories. I've had guys tell me, if you look at the NFL and you compare it to other work sectors, he said, I've had players tell me the same number of NFL players that are abusing spouses or someone domestically mirrors that of society, mirrors that of doctors, mirrors that of teachers. It's the same with lawyers. So the point was, this is an inherent societal problem that is always going to exist on some level, and perhaps the idea that we're going to scrub it completely out of the NFL is just Pollyanna and it would never happen. What do you say to that?
Right. I don't think you're going to completely scrub it out of the NFL. And you're right, this happens all over society. But when you're in the athletic realm and you're in the spotlight, you need to understand that. You need to understand that your actions are going to have consequences just because of who you are. So you need to take steps to protect your reputation, your career, and your income. And in a lot of situations, especially these athletes that started out as a very young age, they've been in a protective bubble, right? Mm-hmm. So they haven't had to learn about personal boundaries. They haven't had to learn about consequences for their behavior. They get to the professional realm and they're still doing these things that they got away with their entire childhood and teenage years. They take it into the professional space where they're making millions of dollars. They're in the spotlight and they get in trouble. And it throws them off guard because they never have to suffer consequences for their behavior in the past.
So when you look
so I just think that it's more education and awareness.
So what does this look like in practical terms? So if this panel becomes picked up by teams or leagues or whatever, what does that look like from the outside perspective, looking in on what you guys can do to help?
So I've assembled a team who specializes in identifying patterns of behavior with predictable outcomes. Armed with this information, professional organizations can build wraparound programs for their most important asset, which is their players. I've also designed a proprietary educational program based on social constructs for coaches, trainers, and athletes, which is a proactive approach as opposed to a reactive approach to educate and create awareness. I just think we need a different approach to this. No, we're not going to eradicate it completely. However, I think that by creating more awareness and putting more education around this, that we can limit the number of cases that are coming out.
In your, I would guess, in your system and what you're trying to do, would this just target players, or would this be something that executives, trainers, scouts, people in the front office would go through as well to kind of, one thing called the Ime Udoka thing, right? That was a big story in the news in terms of people having relationships at work, which is always a bad thing. Like it never really quite ends up well. Is this something that that this program can help as well in that arena?
Yes, it can. It's for everyone within the organization. I only mentioned the players, coaches, and trainers, but you're exactly right. Everyone in the front office could benefit from this training as well.
The league does some of this, Elena. I'm not sure if you're familiar with how much of it they do. I know they do their rookie symposium where they talk at length to the incoming players about this, but do they have an ongoing program that's mandatory for all of the players to sit through some of this and undergo it? And not just the pitfalls that exist while they're playing, but there's a stat that always blows my mind, and you might know this better than I. The last time I remember reading about this stat, I believe it was somewhere in the lines of 75% of all former NFL players 5 years out of the game are either broke, addicted, divorced, or incarcerated. Do you know if there's any ongoing training that these guys need to go through to sort of help them navigate the pitfalls of being an active NFL player and also post-career?
I do believe that the NFL players need help post-career. And that is something that we can assist them with as well, right? Because once you've been in the spotlight and you've had people around you for your entire athletic career, and then all of a sudden you're retired, you don't have those support systems in place. I believe that they do need further support once they leave the league, someone to assist them with their finances, as well as if there's any mental health issues that needs, they need support for as well.
Yeah, having spoken to hundreds of former NFL players, the overwhelming majority share a very similar message that life on the outside, as a lot of them call it, is very, very difficult for them because really, you mentioned this earlier, for the first time in their lives, they're not part of the protected class. They don't have either high school teachers or principals looking out for them to make sure that their grades are good so that they stay eligible. Same in college, same at the professional ranks. It's like they're let out into the wild almost on their own, and now for the first time at 30 whatever, they have to figure out how to make that transition. And as we've seen, the proof is in the pudding. It doesn't always go well, and it's very difficult. And I do think that you're right. There should be some sort of organized plan in place that the league, I think they need to be more proactive. They may say to the players, we're here if you need us, but it becomes lip service pretty quickly. They need, I think, to be a little more proactive and try to make that transition a little easier. Elena, thank you for joining us. Is there anything that we can, is there a book that folks can read to learn more about this? A website? What should they do if they want more information?
Sure. So you can go to my website, which is sharpermindsetgroup.com. And you can read more information on my program or reach out to me on my social media as well. And I'm on Instagram as @Elena Sharps and Facebook as well.
All right. Very good. Elena, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a big issue with a lot of guys that really find themselves lost. I think Leroy has touched on this topic a number of times where he said, it took 2 years for him just to get well physically. And then you have to start dealing with the mental part. Okay, now I'm on the outside. I don't have any handlers. I don't have anybody setting my agenda for me. I don't have anybody plotting a course for me. And I know to people that maybe aren't in this world, they listen to this and they're like, you're a grown man. You're an adult. Adjust.
Yeah.
It's tough because they've had everything done for them. And that's not their fault. That's societally. That's how, we put our athletes on a pedestal. And the better you are, the less you know about what life is like in the real world.
Yeah. I find it really fascinating that, to me, when Charles Barkley says I'm not a role model, right? What we have to realize is that in today's society, I believe athletes are at the highest end of the food chain. Because if you think about it, athletes get in trouble for things that our politicians don't need to get in trouble for. Actually, they openly do these things, right? Like, I juxtapose the fact that, people can pose with AR-15s and John Morant looks like he might get suspended a whole year. What athletes don't understand is that bar. They don't get the fact that, hey, my favorite rapper is Lil Durk and he has guns. He shoots. He don't get in trouble when he go on Instagram. Then you say, hey, my elected official from my precinct, he's a Second Amendment advocate, right? He's doing. But at the end of the day, athletes got to understand, in this country, you at the highest level. and you got the most spotlights when you at that given time, and so you just got to be smart about what you're doing and understand where you at.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. And it's something that we're not, as a show, we're not going to dive into this every day, but certainly it's on our radar. It's something that I think made huge news last year with how the league addressed the Damar Hamlin situation, and he's very fortunate that he is going to resume his playing career and he will be back. But and the other thing too, I wanted to bring up a point. It hit me when she was talking. The outside world, the general fan, most of them think, why do we need to help these guys? These guys are millionaires. The overwhelming majority of these guys, when they walk away from the game, have less than 1 year's salary in the bank.
Yep, crazy.
They don't plan for it. They think the money train is always going to be backing up to that front door. And by the way, you hear about the contracts that the Patrick Mahomes of the world sign. That's not what these guys make, not even close. No. A lot of them are in, and even it sounds like I'm crying, for someone that doesn't need tears, because, the average salary is what? Do we even know?
What is league minimum?
A couple $100,000?
I think league minimum is like $550, $450, $550.
Okay, so when you start, when you hear that number and you're like, oh, well, that's more money than they'll need for 10 years. Well, you're in a high tax bracket, so you're losing a third of it right off the bat.
Boom.
It's
then you've got an
$660,
agent.
by the way.
What is it?
The minimum salary is slated to raise to $750 in 2023.
Okay,
about 45K.
So let's just based off the $750.
Okay.
A third of that has gone to taxes, so there's $250 that you won't see. Now you're down to $500.
Yep.
You got to pay an agent.
Yep.
And most of the agent
10%?
deals are 10%. Okay. Some of them are 4%, some of them are less, depending on the quality of the star.
So that's about $100,000,
but you're down to $500 post-tax. There's another $50 off the top. Now you're down to $450, and it sounds like, well, they're never going to have money problems the rest of their lives. It just doesn't work that way. Yeah. Most of them live like they're going to have that income stream for their entire life.
They
buy cars they don't need. Mom
gets a house.
And
that's
their family obligations. Most of the players tell me when I ask them what's the biggest issue for you,
everyone asks for money.
And they think, well, these guys back home see that I signed a 3-year, $4 million contract, and they're all in line now. And if I don't do for them, then I'm a traitor, and I'm turning my back on them.
We were down at the High School Hall of Fame press conference, and me and Earl were sitting there talking to Mike Doss. And at the time, Mike Doss, when he came out of Ohio State, he was one of the highest decorated safeties that was at Ohio State. And I asked him, because I never got an opportunity to ask him this before, I said, when you got drafted and then announced how much money you make, how many people asked for? He said, man, I had guys who gave me $5 after a McKinley football game that was in line talk about what we doing today. He's like, what do you mean what we doing?
Yeah, and they're come out of everywhere. People learn of relatives they didn't even know they had.
Cousins, third cousins.
Money. Yep. I've heard pro athletes tell me stories of their fathers, or at least people claiming to be their fathers, who had not been in their lives since the day they were born,
just
showing up after they get that bag saying, where's mine?
Yeah.
That's
Are
crazy.
you kidding me?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? That's when you say, I made it here despite you.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Not because of you.
That's crazy.
And those, I'm sure that those stories are a little more frequent than we would think. So, all right, let's go to the NBA Finals.
Yeah, and before we do, guys, I just want to remind you that the 12 o'clock lunch hour is brought to you by Colleagues Companies Championship. See your favorite golf legends play in Colleague Companies Championship July 12th through July 16th at the famous Firestone Country Club. Fun, family-friendly events all week long featuring a new fan zone experience, free attendance for kids, and concerts every single night. There's something for everyone. Learn more at colleaguegolf.com. And to move on to the NBA reactions, congratulations to the Denver Nuggets for probably winning the championship already after that first game.
Feels that way, doesn't it?
Yeah. It wasn't even worth watching.
Can anybody make an argument right now for the Miami Heat?
No.
And I'm not just saying because they lost. It was just after you watch the game and after you see what Jokic can. I mean,
that was their best chance to win a game.
Like, I don't think too, because now it's only going to get more difficult.
It's going to get more difficult. Denver been off for 9 days,
right?
So you have that little bit of rust, and they shot 9 of 27 from 3. They shot 29% from 3.
But they shot overall 50%.
But their 3-point shooting team, they shot 43% to the playoffs, shot
Yeah.
29% last night. Jokic took 4 shots in the first half.
Which is crazy. I was wondering what was going on.
Well, it's pick your poison with him. Do you let him score or do you let everyone else score? They said, all right, Jokic, you're not going to score. We're going to let everyone else score.
And
well,
they did.
What did he do? He had 10 assists in the first half and became the second player ever, the first being LeBron James, with 10 assists and 10 rebounds and a half at basketball. He had a triple-double. He didn't look at his numbers. He played an average game last night, 8 of 12, super efficient. They were up 20 points. I don't know if it was 9 or 10 points they got to the fourth quarter. Whatever it was, Miami went on an 11-0 run in the fourth to make it at least feel like a game for 30 seconds, and then Denver snapped their fingers, said, all right, peace out, we'll see you later, deuces, and cruise to an easy win.
Man, Jay, when you start watching teams in, playoff basketball, finals basketball, it'll sober you right on up. When you got Aaron Gordon coming out the way he came out and looking like he was, the best. He looked like he was Karl Malone. He came out and scored the first, 4 or 5 buckets to set the tone. He ended up 7 and 10, 16.6 rebounds, but that's your 5th option. That guy is not, when he starts coming out and doing that to you, and then Joker didn't even have a huge game, like it was a quiet 27, what are you going to do when they play well?
Yeah,
what
they haven't
do?
seen that yet.
It's a wrap.
They ain't even played to their capabilities right now. So to me, this one is
now.
done.
All of this being said, when the Heat were down, or rather when they were up 3-0, we thought they were, they're the best thing since the 16 Golden State Warriors. And then Boston came storming back, and it looked like the Heat were dead at that point because they had no momentum, and they had to find a way to win a Game 7 in Boston.
Crazy.
And they won that game running away. So I hate to have a funeral for Spoelstra and for Pat Riley and for this Miami Heat team. I just will say this: it sure doesn't look good.
Well, we talked about it yesterday. Before last night, the Nuggets were 6-0 against Miami over the last 3 seasons. The average margin of victory was 13 points. It is a terrible matchup for Miami. Terrible. This does not include last night's win. Bam Adebayo is a really, really good defender.
Wow.
And Bam Adebayo is 6'9", 235 pounds of pure muscle. The dude's body fat's like 2%. He looks like a midget compared to Nikola Jokic. That's how good Joker is. And you mentioned Aaron Gordon.
Small person,
small person, dwarf. I apologize.
By the way, Jokic is the MVP. And
it's not even close.
But man, did they miss that.
But to G's point of Michael Porter Jr. coming out of the woodworks, Aaron Gordon coming out of the woodworks, that happens because Jokic demands 10 eyes when he's on the court.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're 2 people off the ball, if you're in help side, 1 person off the ball. No matter where he has the ball on the court, all 10 eyes of Miami's defense are looking at him. And that leads to backdoor cuts galore, and that's why Jokic's assist numbers are absurd. Everyone's looking at him, and you got guys like Aaron Gordon and MPJ who are both 6'9", 6'10", cutting to the rim against an undersized Miami front line. It is a terrible matchup, and I love Spo. That's the best coached team in the entire NBA. It's not even close. If this goes more than 5 games, I will be shocked.
Could the Cavs beat either one of these teams?
It'd be Miami.
I think they could beat Miami. I think they had a better regular season than Miami did.
Miami's not that good.
I will say this. After I watch Denver this postseason and use them as the yardstick against the Cavs, we're a long ways away.
Hey, look, thank you, Jay. Thank you for we are. This ain't the Duke of knee jerk. This is not this is just pure analysis. This ain't no emotion. Like I say it soberly, that you are a very long way away from that machine.
Yeah, Jokic is the kind of player that literally does make everybody around him better because of the attention that he demands. And there were times this year where teams were like, okay, Donovan Mitchell's not going to do that to us.
Look at the playoffs.
And even though they had individuals step up and pick up the slack, it's a different ball game compared to what Denver has going with Jokic and just how they pass the ball, they're a good passing team.
They find the right guy.
Basketball.
They are the best passing team in basketball.
Not cool. And it helps when you have the best passing big of all time playing essentially point guard, but they're unselfish. The Murray-Jokic pick and roll is literally unguardable.
Did you see Kevin Garnett, the clip of Kevin Garnett, how he would defend it?
Yeah, which is...
Where he was talking about he's just going to body. Basically, he's going to, right off the game, he's going to pick him up on the inbound or, when it's deep in their own, and he's going to start chucking them. And he goes, maybe the next time I'm going to lay back. And then when he comes into the past the timeline, he's going to chuck him again. Like, teams have tried to do that to him.
They've tried everything.
Whatever, like, it's almost like there's no kryptonite for him.
He's too big.
Because whatever you decide to do, and I think the element of that is, and it sounds like hyperbole, but it's not, because as I've watched this postseason, I've said to myself out loud, I've never seen a big that passes the ball any better.
It's not. Listen.
I mean, I know Magic Johnson, but Magic Johnson wasn't a big.
He was a point guard.
He was a guard.
And Jokic is a point center, and they run their entire offense through him. He initiates the offense. He brings the ball up the court half the time. Watch Jokic, and the playoffs has opened, I think, the league's and the country's eyes to Jokic. If you're a basketball fan, obviously you've seen him play.
Yeah,
two-time MVP. It's not like he was unknown, but a lot of people are seeing him play on a sustained level for the first time. He does things and makes passes that guys like LeBron 5 years ago would have been the only one that could see. He makes Steve Nash passes, and he's 7 feet tall and long arms.
That's the difference.
And he sees over the defense in ways that it doesn't matter what you do defensively, he's going to get the angle.
And by the way, who's the 7-footer that drifts out to the three-point line that demands you have to guard him?
You got to put a hand up. That's money.
He is a passing, shooting big. And I know the league has moved away from the true center, but if you can find a guy with a skill set like that, that's the cheat code right now in the NBA.
And congratulations and shout out to all the coaches that aren't afraid of innovation. I could go and show you players that wouldn't traditionally fit in what basketball is doing and say, look how they changed the game. Steph Curry started shooting from half court.
Yep.
Nothing you can do about it. You take a look at LeBron. How many times back in the day would they say, LeBron needs to be underneath the basket. He shouldn't be controlling the ball 24 hours a day. You look at what Jokic is doing. For a person in a team to have the foresight to say, I'm going to let him play his game, and you have no blueprint for it, it's tremendous.
So you know what Miami's counter is going to be in game 2?
No, what are they going to do differently?
It's not going to work, but here's what they're going to try to do. Kevin Love's going to guard Jokic, and they're going to have Bam be the roamer, essentially the free safety back there.
That's a disaster.
To try and detract him from hitting all these backdoor cuts. It's not going to work.
Yeah, no, that's a disaster.
I'm telling you right now, it is not going to work. I think that's what Miami's going to do.
By the way, if they do that and it works, and they somehow, and I don't think it's
not going to work.
I don't
but
think
that's what they're going to try to do.
In fact, I think it's going to be a disaster.
Jokic will go for 50. Is what it's going to turn into.
And Miami wins an NBA championship, essentially because they picked up Kevin Love off the scrap heap.
Yep.
That's going to be another in the long list of Cleveland sports heartbreaks. That if someone would have told me, I was thinking this when I was watching last night, if someone would have told me in February that the NBA Finals are going to have a team from the East that wasn't the 1, it wasn't the 2, it wasn't, and that it was a team that had Kevin Love on it, you would be like, oh my God, the Cavs are in the Finals.
Right. And then they fell apart.
It wasn't the 1, the 2, the 3, and they had Kevin Love on their roster.
And I think Miami's going to do that because at least Kevin Love has size. He's not tall, but he's still 220 pounds.
He's a disaster on defense.
I get it, but at least when Bam's on Jokic, everyone else is spread out. You can put him as the free safety and essentially run a double team at him. And it's not going to work. Jokic is going to go for 50. Like that's what's going to happen instead.
I'm surprised if they do that.
Instead of passing and only taking 4 shots in the first quarter, he's going to take 15, 16 shots and have 33 points at halftime.
I think that's a more
with
likely
2 assists,
scenario.
Which is what's going to happen. But they have to try something else because they got absolutely obliterated.
What they're doing isn't working.
And I think that's their only other. They don't have another big. Cody Zeller played yesterday.
Yeah,
I know.
That's even worse.
But G. Bush, let me ask you this: if there's a team that you're confident that has the ability to make an adjustment, is it Miami the team?
Yeah.
Because with Pat Riley and Spo as the sort of brain trust here, I've got a lot of confidence that if there is a fix, they'll find it. But I don't know that there is one.
Yeah, and Bam played pretty well. Shot almost 50% from the field. Bam played well. He had 25 points. I just think that for them to win a game, they're going to have to pull something. I think Kevin Love does have to play. I think what they have to do is they need to go to the Ty Lue ball approach. We want to shoot 43s a day. We're going to shoot 43s.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to do.
That's their only hope.
That's the only hope.
They got to hope they get 5.
They hit 25 threes.
That's it.
Other than that, it's a wrap.
There is no answer to Jokic. Like, we can
No,
talk about.
he's the NBA
There
cheat
is
code.
no answer to Jokic in the NBA. And Miami, as good as Bam is,
Too small.
cannot guard Jokic
small.
in the way that he needs to.
Has there ever been a player like Jokic?
No.
Like, at that level?
Well, that is a big that can shoot, that can find the open man. Some of the passes he makes, I'm like, that's not getting through.
I think
He's the best passer in basketball.
I think
It's unbelievable.
He is the best passer in
I
basketball.
think somebody said this. I forget who said it. I don't know whether it's Isaiah Thomas or somebody. He said, Joker plays like the prime Arvydas Sabonis.
Yeah.
Like, he plays like
Okay, yeah, that's
Arvydas, like
pre-back injuries
pre-injury,
and-
like
right,
when
right.
he was one of the best dudes in the Eastern Hemisphere. Like,
No, that
he
might
plays
be
like
it.
him.
One Sabonis story real quick, and then we'll move on to the top 5. I heard this when they were talking about Roy Hachimura after Game 1 when he played pretty well against Jokic. Apparently when he came to Gonzaga, he didn't speak English very well, and he did something in practice, and Mark Few called him a dumbass. And he thought he was calling him Domas Sabonis, who was his favorite player growing up. So he has this big grin on his face, like, oh, I did something like Domas. And he was calling him a dumbass. And
That's very good.
A little cipher. Anthony, what's next?
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody one last time today that
It's a
you
great
can
story.
see your favorite golf legends play in the Colleague Companies Championship July 12th through July 16th at the famous Firestone Country Club. Fun, family-friendly events for all weekend long featuring a new fan zone experience, free attendance for kids, and concerts every single night. There's something for everyone. Learn more at colleaguegolf.com. So I took a vacation, like 3 weeks ago? Mike missed me. Decided to make a top 5
We
about
missed
me.
you.
Missed you a
Yeah,
lot.
well, after today, I don't know if I missed myself. But anyways, Earl made his debut, last week? We made a top 5 about Earl.
Yeah.
Now, this was a little tough because McNuggets is an open book, but we're doing top 5 things you need to know about McNuggets.
Oh,
that you
wow.
might not know about McNuggets. You might know about McNuggets. This one's more for a casual audience, maybe.
As we said earlier, I spend a lot of time with Anthony and Earl these days. Like, a lot of time.
Yeah.
So we'll see what you guys
They know it all at this
see what you
point.
can remember.
Alvin
so
and
we
the
can-
Chipmunks.
We can take number 5 here, Steve. He, as mentioned earlier, has turned Earl and I into gym rats.
I know, that's crazy.
That's true.
I was in there, was it yesterday? I was in there, and
I was in there yesterday.
Anthony was in there working out without McNuggets. I don't know that I've seen that before.
No, I don't usually work out here alone. No, I usually go to the gym over in Parma, but
Okay.
And
But he was here by himself.
Hey,
Anthony
every
was-
step counts.
Anthony was in there and lifted in uncomfortable gear. He had Doc Martens on, a random hockey jersey, and a backwards hat. I said, "Dang, bro,
Dang.
you on after there? Like he's like, you going out after this? Yeah, yeah. Me and my girl are gonna do something. So you gonna have to get rid of them
Where's-
shoes, dog.
Where's Bree?
Bree's back
Oh,
here.
Bree's back here. Okay, she was
She
out
fell
here
asleep
early.
for like 30 minutes of the show, so that's, on me. I got to make a better show. Sorry,
Damn,
guys.
Anthony.
She was underneath the table.
All right, let's
just-
take 4 here, Steve. Mike, always on time, never late,
Fact.
ever once.
Fact.
Can't imagine him ever being late. When he is late and shows up after me, I worry. I feel like I need to call him.
Wow.
Yeah, if I'm
Punctual is.
yeah,
That's-
my sophomore year of college, we had 6 a.m. workouts, and we had just signed. Jim O'Brien was our coach, and he had just signed the best recruit Emerson ever signed. And that kid was late for the 6 a.m. workout by 2 minutes, and he kicked him out and made him run suicide sleep sprint later. If I have an alarm set, I don't sleep to my alarm. My alarm is set for 7 every morning. I wake up at like 6:45.
Good.
Can't sleep past my alarm. I hate being late. It drives me crazy.
All right, good. That's a great characteristic.
Yeah.
I wish
Earl
I
was
could
late
have
today,
that.
by the
I wish
way.
I could say that I'm never late, but I'm always late.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was really good. Like when we started, 8:01 sounds good to me.
I got- I
was
Usually
late
when I
today.
walk-
Earl was late today. Yeah. yeah.
I got a 4-day streak going.
Hey, shout out G. Bush. He's been here by at least 10:30, 4 days in a row.
He was here when I pulled in. I pulled in at like 10:22,
And
he
G
was
was
sitting there.
G was the
G
consummate.
scared
yeah.
me a little bit. I walked in today with Bree to the studio, and he was just sitting there quietly on his phone. I was like, oh.
I know. When I pulled in, I looked over in the studio as I drove by, and I'm like, damn, G. Bush is already in there. That's,
Yeah.
Steve be getting scared too. Sometimes the light be off. He be like, "What the hell?"
You used to be sitting here in the dark?
He was like, "Hey, bro, you can't do that. You already dark. That's some scary stuff, bro. You just see a shadow."
All right, what's number 3?
I think we all know this one, but the fans might not. Mike walks everywhere. If
Oh,
he
yeah.
doesn't have to drive, he is
Yeah.
not driving.
Walker.
Refuses. I don't
The
even know if he has a
walking nugget.
driver's license.
Hey.
He might be driving illegally.
We
No,
be
yeah, I walk
having
everywhere.
we be having post game shows, and sometimes McNuggets might be at the game or out and about. He'd be like, "Yeah, guys, I'm on my way." I'm like, "Where are you going? You out of breath?" I'm walking.
We did
Why
the,
do you do that?
Well, I live downtown. I hate paying. I refuse to pay for parking. That's another. I don't know if that's
Also,
on
yeah,
here.
if you did tune into, was
Yeah.
it the last
It was
post-game
the
show
last.
for the Cavs?
The Cavs lost game.
Mike was sprinting back.
The Cavs lost Game 5. I left Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse with 2 minutes on the clock. I sprinted home. It's like almost 2 miles. I was on the FaceTime. I think we tweeted a video. I was on the FaceTime with Anthony, or on the stream with them, sprinting home.
Before the game ended.
I made it home on time for the stream. Well,
It was like
Wow.
by the minute. So once again, still on time.
Yep.
So-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good on you,
That
man.
sucked.
also- he
That was
speed
terrible,
walks.
by the way. I shouldn't have done that.
No, you should have just let us
I was so
handle it.
sweaty
You
on the
would've been fine,
post-game.
But
Yeah, I bet. And out of breath.
Yeah, not good.
he said
Not
it's an
good.
East Coast thing, but he does speed walk too.
Yeah, it's a New York,
Hey,
New
we'll
Jersey
pull into
thing.
the garage
no,
at the same
everybody walks
time.
fast there.
Yeah.
I use the elevator in the morning because I'm lazy and tired, and he'll walk up the steps and he'll beat me up there.
Hey, it's
The
all about
elevator's slow, Mike's
efficiency.
fast.
No wasted seconds in the day.
Yeah, well, good.
Right?
All right, let's go
what's
with number two here, Steve. Mike has more flight delays than
Oh,
anybody
yeah.
I have ever met in my entire
This was
life.
tough.
I think he's
tough.
just too cheap to pay for the direct flights. And them layovers,
No, this one to Jersey was direct both ways, and I spent 13 hours in the airport.
oh,
waiting
that's crazy.
this past weekend.
That's
You
crazy.
know, I wonder if it's
Yeah.
just a New Jersey thing, because my son, who coaches at Rutgers, it's like every time he comes home, he's delayed coming here, he's delayed going back. It's terrible.
People tell me the Jersey traffic's so crazy that you'll be in traffic 5 hours, 6 hours.
I
just
mean,
sitting there.
When you go down the shore
If you're trying
on
to
a
get to the beach,
Friday
yeah, it's
after
terrible.
Memorial Day, you could sit.
Yeah.
You could sit in traffic for upwards of 4, 5, 6
That's
hours.
crazy.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
No, what do you
it's-
mean?
It's horrible.
Well, you got
because
all the people
everybody
from
lives
the-
in the concrete jungle
Yeah.
or suburbs of the city, and they want to get to the beach, and the beaches of New Jersey are phenomenal.
Fact.
And so everybody wants to go down the shore. And so you just wait. You just sit in that traffic and you wait.
And the issue is all these little shore towns, G, are not built for massive floods of people.
No, they're not.
So it's like
They'll have
You get off
they'll
the
have a
exit.
stoplight at the end of the exit,
that's what it is.
and it might stay green
30 seconds.
for 30 seconds because they also have to keep the through traffic in the town moving.
Oh,
and so
Lord.
8 cars
get-
will get through the light, and then the line will move up 8 cars.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you'll sit
Yeah.
until the light changes, and it's every exit on the parkway going down the shore. You just sit there and you wait.
That's
It's
disgusting.
I was on-
frustrating.
In the terms of the flight delays, I was on a pretty good streak of not being delayed. And the last 5 of my last 6 flights have been delayed.
Wow.
And they were all direct, too.
Terrible.
So
Mike and I have had the conversation too, where like I'm from Cleveland, born and raised here. If I can't go over the speed limit, that means there's traffic. And
Yeah,
it-
Anthony
and
was
it
like,
bothers me.
yeah.
I don't know real traffic,
Yeah.
Right.
So we like have this conversation every time we're like
Having
driving
lived
anywhere.
here for a bunch of my life and in the Northeast for 17 years, I can tell you, we do not know what traffic is.
No.
Even on your worst snarl up on 480, and we do. That's on the regular. That's a good flow day in the New York metro area.
2:30 in the afternoon. It took me an hour to get out of Charlotte when I was at that wedding in North Carolina.
Hey, Charlotte.
It drove me crazy.
Charlotte's terrible.
Oh, before you do number one,
Charlotte's terrible.
can I add something to this?
Yeah, go for it. We got time.
I drove on Dead Man's Curve for the first time yesterday.
What?
I know what it
That's
is
not
now.
true.
I finally.
You've texted us before that you've driven on
I
it.
was not
Did you
on
lie?
it. I was not on it.
You liar.
It's-
I was not on it. I was driving back. Well, no, I thought I was, but I wasn't. And then last night, because it comes off and then loops back around
Yeah,
to.
yeah. You live right by it almost.
I didn't know where it was, but I drove on it last night, and it literally tells you like you will die if you're not going 25, essentially, and that's
Yeah.
how I knew it was. So I was on a different exit that was just a big loop.
And it is
Fun
fast.
fact
thought was-
about Dead Man's Curb, Bree's sister is terrified of it because she's from Columbus and she's never been on it. She came up here for a concert, was like, I don't have to drive on Dead Man's Curb, do I? I was like, no, you're good.
Well, I mean, any road that's called Dead Man's Curve.
Yeah.
I see why now.
Yeah.
it's
and
horrifying.
I only
if you're
bring that
not
up
used
because
to it.
Anthony had asked me if I'd driven on it before, and I was like, I think, and I really did think I was, and it wasn't. And then last night, my GPS took me a different way home from basketball for whatever reason, and it took me on it, and
As soon as you got on it, you're like, oh, this is Dead Man's
that's
Curve.
like I knew it. It was one of those things I thought I was, but I knew it when I knew it.
Yeah.
It's a
And
90-degree angle.
It is.
Yeah.
Just
Terrible,
right
terrible
turn.
arc. That was whoever did that. No offense. I hope you're watching. Please like and subscribe.
turn.
I'm sure you're a big UCSS fan. Thank you, but that was a dumb decision.
Yeah,
man.
that
Or
whole
woman,
the
that
whole
was
90
terrible.
thing is crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, what's
All right,
the
what's
number
number
one
one?
thing
All
you
right,
need to know
last
about
one. So you
McNuggets?
guys might know Earl as the snack king. Mike, not allowed around snacks. He
Fact.
will eat all of them. We have
Fact.
to keep them away. He will eat the cookies.
Yeah.
He will eat the
Nope.
donuts. He will
Yeah.
eat the Chex Mix.
Yep.
He will eat anything
Yep.
that you put in front of him, and you have to hide it from him or it'll be gone.
I love that graphic. Who did that?
That's Anthony.
I found that on Google, I'll be honest.
Hey, Jay,
That's
I left
really
my,
good.
I thought it was hysterical.
Jay, I left my snacks upstairs. This was a couple months ago. I had some wild berry.
Yeah, that's my bad, bro. My
I left
bad.
them on my desk. I
My
come back
bad.
to work the next day. Mike like, yeah, my bad, bro.
Yeah.
You just left them there day too long.
Them got
We got 1 minute here, guys,
them
but
got
we had donuts
sacrificed.
delivered to us by, was it Greedy Sports Cards?
Yeah, that's my bad too, bro.
Mike,
my bad
Mike
too.
walked back
My
and
bad.
forth and just took 3 donuts. He's like, you got to keep
Yeah.
these away from me. And then kept going
Yeah.
back and forth to the donuts. We're like, Mike.
Yeah.
Where do you put it?
That's crazy.
He plays basketball 3 nights a week. You're never going to notice it.
Yeah.
No, but I feel it, and that's like my cabinet at home. It looks like no one lives there. Because if there's food, I will eat it. It's a problem. My parents never had snacks growing up, so now whenever I get snacks, it's an issue. Earl's the king of snacks. I can't be around snacks. Seriously, if you see me, I can't do it. I can't do it.
I love it. Great show, guys.
Later.
Monday, Tom Darden. I
can't do it.
Browns great will join the program.
Snacks.
Overtime is next.
These